All right, we are live. So good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Monday, February 3rd meeting of the Town of Easton Planning and Zoning Board. As always, we are going out live and recorded via ECAT. And tonight's meeting, as shown on the agenda, is to focus on the Five Corners Village neighborhood zoning amendments that we're going to propose for town meeting. So, welcome all.
Can I pass out the list of topics to the other?
Sure. So, probably shouldn't audibly sigh like that. So just for folks at home or in the audience who have not participated in this process previously, as we know, over the course of the last couple of years, sewer has been passed and has been started to be constructed into the Five Corners district. And to take advantage of that change and to address many changes happening in our society and in our town, the least of which is the effect on bricks and mortar retail and services. We being the planning department, the planning board, and the administration of the town, had been discussing for a while looking at rezoning or amending the zoning in what we're calling the Five Corners Village District. We've always talked about, well, we've talked the last few years about having three main walkable downtowns in Easton, one being the village district over here, kind of downtown North Easton, excuse me. One being southeastern along Route 138, we can think, and then the Five Corners Village District, which loosely, we're still determining, or we're still deciding on the boundaries of that, but basically it's from the intersection of at Five Corners up to a little past Hannaford's Plaza, Big Y Plaza, Highlands Plaza, whatever it's called. So, and the thought is, how do we create, what is a walkable neighborhood? And the thought is, because let's face it, you take your life into your own hands right now if you walk along Route 106, but as planners, our job is to look into the future and to try to help craft planning and tools in this form, zoning, that to create an atmosphere, or in this case, a neighborhood that we think is beneficial to the town. So basically, we're thinking, all right, well, we know we have a large number of apartments up at Target, the Avalon, and we have number of businesses up there, and then as we proceed closer to Five Corners, we go through a historical and pretty mostly residential area, and then it picks up again with commercial as you get closer to the Five Corners intersection. So in the future, we'd like to see a comfortable streetscape, sidewalks on both sides of the street, some more trees, pedestrian amenities. There's a project proposed which will tie into the sort of the emerald necklace that we have of Easton out there. There's a lot of our green space. There's also part of that proposal will be traffic light and turning lanes at the intersection of Pequannock and 106 on Foundry Street. So the thought is, okay, so what's a walkable neighborhood? If we, but it's not only the amenities, but how do we create economic development there? We thought, okay, we could put a couple more restaurants in, but Neil won't let us do that. So, but what's retail going to be, right? It's changing quite a bit, and I don't know if any of us really know the answer because we're right in the middle of it. But that's why we put sessions like this together, to hear from the residents and to hear from our planners on staff and to talk amongst ourselves. We leading up to tonight's meeting, as you know, some of you have been here before, we've looked at ways to increase the density of residential housing. With, coming out of the master plan that we did 5 years ago, we talked about the need for diversified housing in town. Pretty much you had 3 choices. You could buy a brand new house, but that's $900,000 and up, and that's not in everybody's budget. Or you buy an old house that you could get much less, but needed another $300,000 to be brought up to code. Or you could rent. And our thought was, well, perhaps we can look at things such as compact neighborhoods. Get back to what made many of these towns at the onset: smaller lots, smaller homes that fit into to the scale of a smaller neighborhood. Maybe mixed use. Maybe get back to the feeling of the old mom and pop shops. Ground floor retail or ground floor service or restaurant, and some units above. And then also in the middle, there's a nice historical neighborhood, and the thought is, is there a way that we could perhaps enhance that or incentivize historical preservation by, offering different tools by which one can use their property or increase their property value, on the residential end. So, so that's sort of the thumbnail sketch of what we've been trying to do. As you know, when we were here a couple weeks ago, I guess it was last week, we looked at the map. We talked about 3 districts. We're talking about the Eastman and Eastman Street sub-district, which is up towards Big Y and Target. And we talked about a residential. We have to come up with a better name, but a residential sub-district in the middle, kind of right where it is. All the Pequannock and South Street and that neck of the woods. And then the Depot Street sub-district. And essentially the thought was, okay, in the westernmost portion, the Eastman Street district, maybe we would look at denser residential applications there, and business, but I'm just kind of focusing on the residential right now. Excuse me. There's room up there. There's more of a blank palette. There's quite a bit of a commercial and dense residential presence already. So sort of to build on that. And then on the opposite end, we'd be looking to do something similar, but on a smaller scale, less density, in the Depot Street area, where there are, I think it's safe to say there's more of a diverse mixture of buildings in varying states of use. And then back in the middle, there's the residential area. And our thought was, as a member of the Historical Commission, I've always wanted to protect this area and keep its neighborhood, its residential feel. It was never our goal to see this entire stretch go commercial. We want, because I don't think it's realistic, and it's not what we want in the first place. And again, to create economic development in this area, which has a lot of traffic, and that's not going away. And that's not traffic that's really produced by Easton. It's everybody cutting between the 2 main highways. So the thought is, can we use some traffic calming, move new structures closer to the road, get the parking off the road, get it towards the back, focus on the aesthetics of the building, create some green spaces for outdoor dining, think spaces off of work areas, and just some, create a more a friendlier environment. And so those of you that were here last week or watched on TV or have contacted us, we've been working with Judy Barrett, a consultant, who I think will be joining us a little later this evening. But as you go through this, like any work product, you don't know the answer for a while, because it's detailed, important stuff that public feedback's part of it, and just where we're going with it. So we saw some proposed densities last week, and this is really, as you know, those that were here, we kind of all saw it at the same time. So tonight, what I'm hoping to do is hear from my fellow planning board members, and now that we've had a week to kind of digest this last version, and see any thoughts, and talk to Andrea, and then hear the thoughts of you folks. I know I've been in touch with with several of you, and I know you've been meeting, and that's great. We welcome participation. This is all our town, but it's your neighborhood. You know, it's almost my neighborhood, but I'm a little further up the street. So, so with that, I've babbled on long enough. And do you have anything you want to say, Andrea, before we
No, this
jump
is,
in? Okay.
no, go right ahead.
So,
Well, let me just say, sorry, I always have something. The difference between version 3, which you had last week, and version 4 is inconsequential. It came out, so whichever one you read, it's got the body of it is pretty much the same. The only significant change was that she recognized in the residential subdistrict, the size of the buildings was going to be the same as normal residences, and she corrected a couple of the references to numbering references to get to our current code. So whichever you read, version 3 or version 4, the body is pretty much the same. So we can speak. I'll have real minor kind of, questions to clean it up, but that's not the purpose of today.
so I guess I'll just do any of you board members, you guys have any comments or questions or anything you'd like to discuss since we were last together on this?
Well, do you want to go through the districts, or just bring up anything in particular right now?
Well, I think I'd like to start, since we have a crowd, to me it makes sense, why don't we start talking about residential perhaps, just,
Yeah, sure.
I understand it, I think that's the main, not that I'm not concerned about everything, but I know a lot of you are here for the residential part, so maybe we can, we could start on that. I know, if we look at this version here, at the direction of this board, our consultant, a few weeks back, we talked about, maybe we could look at compact neighborhoods. We keep talking about small A affordable housing, right? How can we, part of this thought is, if we're gonna have a walkable neighborhood, there needs to be a younger component to it at some point. We're getting older as a town, and our school demographics are going down. I know everybody always wants to, starts to panic about school numbers, but you don't want to get rid of all your youth in the town, and the thought is, my kids are in the late 20s and early 30s, and they're all in the city now. But I do believe, in fact, there was an article in the Boston Globe just yesterday or today saying how the majority, I think 65% of 3-bedroom apartments in Boston are occupied by either multiple renters who can't afford, or by people using them for office spaces, aren't handled by young families. And I've always thought when our kids become parents, and their kids become soccer age, I could see a large percentage of them coming back out to the suburbs, and where are they going to live if the house is? I don't see how they're going to have the ability, a lot of them, to afford the $900,000 house. They are growing up in a slightly different time than we did. So that's kind of the thought behind compact neighborhoods. Land price in Easton these days is roughly $300,000. You put building prices on top of that, even for a small basic house, and you're pretty close to $1 million all of a sudden. But if we can create some smaller lots that, drop that cost down to under $100,000, now the financials start to work. So frankly, at my direction, when Judy was here last, or two meetings back, I said, why don't we, see if there's any interest in creating some slightly more dense area in the residential area. So that's where, basically it talks about 1 unit per 10,000 square feet. Think of a builder's lot, what they call, or a building lot in Easton is 40,000 square feet right now. So that's where that would come from, basically a quarter acre. And then wanting to keep the historical preservation going, Judy tossed out the idea, said, many towns offer a incentive if you maintain or even improve, because a lot of buildings over time, some of the details have disappeared or have been covered over. If you work on restoring or preserving the exterior of a historical building you could perhaps, as an incentive, have an increased density. And that came out in the first version we had from that came out as a unit for every 3,000 feet, which a lot of us thought, I think rather than like, okay, that seems a bit aggressive.
So she left that in version 4, so that's
Yeah,
worth
no,
discussing.
it's right, it's still there. So it's just a matter of, so this is where, so we started to talk about that stuff. And I know last week we had a lot of discussion about the 16-acre parcel that's on the bend of South Street. And as I pointed out, I said, first of all, if we did quarter-acre zoning there under our compact neighborhood or under our flexible development, it's not 64 units. If you look into that, there's quite a bit of open space required, and it was just, and as I said last week, it was more, well, let's throw it out there. So what we do it when you plan, right? You brainstorm, and you throw ideas out there, and some of them get thrown right back at you, or some of them, but it's a starting point. So that was sort of our thoughts. And then as further on, when we look at the residential units in the commercial districts, they were looking at up to 20 units per acre in the Eastman Street district and 10 in the Depot Street.
Maximum density here is one, here on the Depot Street.
Yeah?
In version 4, it's one dwelling unit for 10,000, unless you were to, so do you want to go deeper? That's the standard?
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, I misspoke, you're right, I misspoke.
That's the
That's right,
same
that
as
got
last-
changed.
The last version, right?
Yeah, but not as the first, but anyway, so why don't we, board members, anybody, I'm not hearing much, so you want me to throw it out to
No,
hear
let's
from
not go
our...
for it. So on the map, first of all, the map hasn't changed since last
Well, I
week?
don't want to, the map, Judy sent a map, and
Okay.
I want to focus on the map a little later.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
to me, we know roughly the district we're talking about, exactly where the break may be in the sub-districts we can discuss, but I think it's important to talk about the two commercial districts and the residential
Oh, yeah,
district.
actually,
What's in
yeah.
the,
Really, the only point I had was that on South Street, the map included the graveyard, which it looked to me, so we could just probably take that out.
Right,
and work on that next version.
right.
Just didn't make any sense. Yeah, see that?
That was,
That's the only point. I just noticed it when I was looking at the map the other day, so.
you mean the one that she sent?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was
Yeah.
there's a few things. That's why,
There's a couple
there was a few
Yeah.
things on that,
Yeah.
so I didn't even want to.
So.
but get rid of this, it is on, the two maps are on either side of the blue colored in your
We
binder.
can look at that later.
Okay,
So maximum residential density, so we sticking with the 1 per 10,000 for Depot?
How does that work as far as 10 units per acre?
Well,
That's different from,
let's see. So for the Depot Street side, that's the 1 dwelling unit per 10,000 square feet, right? So, right, yeah. So that would be 4 per acre on that one, right?
Well,
Yeah, 4.
After the 10,
Well, the 10 is, the maximum number of upper story or multifamily units on a lot shall be 10 in the Depot Street sub-district and 20 at the Eastman Street sub-district.
that's the two corners.
So that 10, so you're right, so the 10 in the Depot Street sub-district doesn't really match up with the 1 per 10,000 square feet, right? So that should be, we either up the per square foot or reduce the maximum, right? Okay, we're on, let's see, D, this building regulations,
Page 3.
yeah.
I don't know what I thought she was saying that, it's 10,
Oh, well, that's
it's
on a
10
lot.
as of right.
So that could be, say a,
And then-
right. Well, say a larger lot than 1 acre. I mean, if you combined some lots or you had a larger shopping plaza or something that you did something on where there's more than 1 acre.
no, we're going to talk residential.
Right, yeah.
Maybe
So
we
the
wait
question
till
is
she
size,
gets
there
over
is a
to talk about it.
25,
Yeah, so
she
why don't
uses a 25,000 square foot for major development. She might have meant it for that.
So before we get too far down the rabbit hole, I'd like to refocus. Instead of trying to figure out what Judy was talking about, we can ask her when she gets here. I'd really like to talk about, like I said, I'd like to talk about the residential district in the middle, because that's the one I probably got 42 calls on over the weekend. And I know so let's start with that,
Gotcha.
and then we can try to figure out,
Okay.
if she doesn't show up, we can try to figure out
Okay,
what
where
we're
do you want
talking
to
about.
look
But when
where do you
she's
want
here,
to
I'd
look at
rather have her
this?
answer.
What we have right here, what part, what aspect of the residential?
But what I'd
It's
like, the residential
The,
district.
the
the
table just
residential-
below.
Yep, yeah,
The residential sub-district.
yes.
So
Okay.
I'd like to throw it out to you kind folks in the audience and
but-
hear your thoughts.
I'm sorry, I thought Peter was talking also about the 3,000, the one dwelling unit per 3,000 square foot.
Well, we're gonna, yeah, I mean, we'll tackle the depot and Eastman later, I suppose, and focus on the residential and the densities and whatever else.
That's what I'd like to do.
Yeah, sure, okay.
And then we'll swing out, like we talked
If
about,
that number isn't good, what's a good number?
we'll figure that out.
Yeah.
Well, I just need to give her, I need to give her direction
let's hear
because
what
she's
people
not
think.
But
getting
let's-
it.
Let's do that when she gets here. We'll
What-
talk to
okay.
her.
Well,
Well, I'm trying to. I'm trying to take the temperature of the room. I
I just
can't.
jumped into something here, density, and then we switched over to residential, which is okay, so let's,
I think it seems like you folks are open
Need to
to
get a mic.
suggest, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, grab a mic, sorry. In fact, you should just keep that out there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just if you keep it back there, you can pass it around.
Pass it
so,
around.
Yeah,
just introduce yourselves.
look out for those viruses.
Neil Levine, 503 Foundry Street. It seems like you folks are open to suggestion. You've got a consultant's report that's making some suggestions for our town, and you've got the planning board who is the stewards of our town. I think you probably want more input from the residents. Stop me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, no, that's
As opposed from
exactly.
a consultant who doesn't live in the district.
Correct.
There's a couple of densities that you mentioned, the 3,000 square foot one and the 10,000 square foot. Could you explain what that means for a house lot that has, say, 15 or 20,000 square feet? There's a lot of lots in the district currently in the residential area that are smaller than the 1 acre current zoning requirements that are, prior non-conforming uses. So can you speak to that and kind of explain it to us as lay people?
Sure. So as we've been looking at how we're going to create, additional living opportunities in this district where we have all pre-existing lots, with many pre-existing non-conforming, and by that I mean lots that are less than 40,000 square feet. Right now, if you wanted to do anything in Easton, you'd have to have a minimum of 40,000 square feet. If you had a building that was on, say, a 12,000 square foot lot, then depending on what you wanted to do in terms of footprint, you may or may not have to go to ZBA. So our thought is, okay, as this district, our thought is to help improve this district. It's a great district to start with. We just like to, to help make, like we say, make it walkable, improve the viability of it. Welcome. Sure, come on in. So think of it, there's lots out there. Yeah, there are some lots that are under 40,000. There are just as many that are over. There's lots next to each other. Maybe someone, so how is that land going to be used? Maybe someone wants to buy, maybe someone tries to group a couple lots together. A couple neighbors get together and say, hey, we have these two houses, maybe we put together. And so if one lot has 12,000 square feet and one lot has 18,000 square feet, well, you combine it as one, you'd have 30,000 square feet. You could have 3 units. Could be single family, could be mixed use, could possibly be apartment, depends on, our final version of this and what we'd like to see it to be. If you had, for example, 55,000 square feet, if it is at 1 unit per 10,000, then you could have 5 units. So again, we're trying to determine the density, and part of that is what are the units? What are they? Is it single-family detached? Are they attached? Is it mixed use? So does that answer your question?
Somewhat. Can you explain the 3,000 square foot lot size? Because that does seem a little...
Well,
Aggressive.
3,000, as I said earlier, and maybe I didn't make myself clear, when, at our direction, Judy in a previous version, version 2 or version 3, we talked about a historic preservation component. So as a incentive, we said, at the night, we said, hey, maybe what if you could get an extra unit or two? And that was the verbatim that night. So when we grouped last week, the version we had, it said 3,000 per unit, up to. And I think it's safe to say the feel of the board was, oh, that might be a little too dense, a little too aggressive. And like I say, this is all, and it's we've peeled everything back. Very often, lots of times, we kind of work on zoning ahead of time, but given the sensitive nature of this neighborhood and how involved you guys have been and the great job that you've done going back, participating with us in the visioning session that we did a year ago, and then everything you just went through with everything related to the sewer, we thought, and I was trying to explain, so we brought you in really early, so you sort of, you see how the soup's made, and which may be good or may be bad. But part of this is sometimes people just, Judy gets ideas from us, or here's our feedback. She works in this extensively, so she might be putting in some numbers, and let's see how they react to that, what they think. And so we're still in that, we're still in that sort of formulating.
So that 3,000 number is more of let's call it a placeholder, to say if you had a property that was maybe 12,000 square foot lot, and you wanted to make it into multiple units, you would allow that if you kept this historic character of the property. Is that kind of the thought process behind that?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, because again, going back to, we've always felt that this district is unique. I mean, it's a very, everything's a finite area, but it's a pretty compact area. And it starts with sort of modern commercial, and then it's that residential area with a lot of historical, a lot of varying types of houses in there. And granted, there's a little commercial mixed in there, and then it picks up again. We don't want to change that flavor. It ties into some fantastic neighborhoods in South Street and Quanticut, and across, going down to, both sides of South Street. Really, the biggest nut we have to crack is just figuring out the densities. And part of that is seeing the flavor of the neighborhood. I mean, they're your properties, they're your houses. We're not looking to force anything on anyone, but there's an opportunity here to create, I dare say, a gem of a neighborhood. I've always loved that part of town. I lived there for 31 years. And, traffic's not going away. There's 29,000 cars a day, and I bet you it'll be 39,000 in 10 years. Like that, not because of anything we're doing in Easton, that's the traffic between the highways. Maybe that'll be changed by autonomous vehicles.
I was just going to say, aren't driverless vehicles?
I don't know. We'll see. I don't, or more. There's, the school of thought that, wait a minute, there's going to be a lot more folks that can't drive now that will have access to vehicles. So we will see. But here's the thing: if I lived up at Avalon, or if I lived up the other end, and I'm sure we're going to see a few more restaurants, and we're going to see more services, and the benefits of sewerage. Knowing that traffic's going through, but boy, I have nice shaded streets. There's benches now and then. There's sidewalks. It's safe. There's pond. There's multiple paths into the Easton's Emerald Necklace. And I'm younger than an overweight guy like me. I'm going to I'm probably going to walk to Shaw's or pick up my pizza. There's that overweight guy again. But
If you don't mind, Dale and I were chatting today, and there's a train of thought that says, well, leave the residential alone and just work the business ends. And some people think it's a good, I think there's also a train of thought that says, let's do everything all at once and get the zoning set up to allow for that now. Could you speak to that as to why you would want to do all the district at the same time as opposed to leaving the residential alone and adjusting the business ends of the district?
Well, planning is out, and you're looking into the future. You're going 10-year cycles, or you're going out a bit to to plan for that stretch, not a very large stretch, the thought would be, well, let's do it all at once so it grows organically together. So that, there's a few givens that we know there, there's some more units being added up at Avalon. We know that sewerage is going to bring more commercial opportunities at either end. You know what we're really trying to do? And then in the middle, there's the opportunity to improve that neighborhood. And what I mean by that is, if we put tools in place that benefit folks that want to keep that stretch residential, it can help. We can use these tools to help guide your vision, and our vision. Easton, my fear is that, Easton, we know how much of a gem this town is from all the gifts we were given early on, and frankly, the gifts that many folks in this building over the last 5 decades have worked really hard to maintain. I love this community. I'll never move from here. And I mean, you're a big fixture in it. I don't have to preach the benefits of this town, but I have a fear, and we're looking from a planning standpoint. Our commercial corridors, our 2 main ones, 138 and 106, are sort of on the outskirts of our town. If you read the charter, the charge for the planning board, it talks about maintaining Easton's rural character. In some ways, we're so lucky that these main thoroughfares are here, because we can sort of channel our traffic that way. And all those nice tree-lined streets and, leafy views that we have inside, get to remain. We've put a lot of tools in the last few years. We were talking about that parcel on South Street the other day. And, I said, we talked about quarter-acre zoning, but because I saw the need for smaller, compact, aesthetically pleasing homes that would help maintain the historical character of that. And let's talk about the elephant in the room. We all noticed that parcel went on the market last week, or at least we all saw it for the first time. And
Which one was that, Frank?
the large one on South Street. I'm trying to think of the name of it. But so that could be developed right now conventionally, 40,000 square foot lot subdivision. I think the advertisement talked about, up to 12 lots. And it says, oh, there's no wetlands. Who knows? We never walked on that property. And, so someone could go in following our bylaws and not ask for any waivers and put a road in. And that would develop that entire parcel. Or if you look at, when I talk about our compact neighborhood or our flexible development, those are tools that we have which aren't necessarily meant to create more density. It's really to help preserve a lot of our natural character. You end up with smaller lots. I won't bore you with a talk on zoning, but you end up with smaller lots and a lot more open space. And instead of an engineer just going in and designing everything out geometrically per setbacks, we go out there. It's sort of we work hand in hand to look at features of a given piece of land, so that we can, someone has land rights, they have a right to develop that, but maybe we can develop it in a way that is more sensitive and preserves a lot. Again, I won't bore you again, but I gave that example of Weber Estates, how we were able to keep all those trees because we used the existing yards up front for a group septic system, and that saved a couple hundred trees and a lot of stone walls. So, yeah, the neighborhood, the residential part, okay, say, sure, we're not going to touch it, but that's not going to stop what could happen on either end of it. And it just seems to be, I think we could have a better end product if we try to do it all at once. And again, we're not trying to force anything on anybody. No one has, but the thought was there's, 35 houses out there. See what the flavor is of the neighborhood. Are they looking to, when we remember the night we all walked through the little picture show we did, and forgive me, it was one of the houses, I can't think of the exact address, but it was between the South Street and Pequannock on the eastern side. And I said, yeah, perfect example. It's a nice historical house, and it's maintained a lot of its original character, and it has a really large yard. And I said, okay, so do we want to see this just stay the way it is? Or do we want to see, one or two small, really nice historically looking homes added in there? And they didn't, it was rhetorical. I don't know the answer. That's what we're trying to figure out. But we wanted to be able to, I guess we're trying to express to the neighborhood there's opportunity there to expand on what you have. You might not want to do that, but nothing ventured, nothing gained, so we throw it out there.
So you can leave, and to answer it a different way, you can leave your existing lots the way they are. Don't do anything with them.
Can I speak for a moment?
Sure.
Dale Carrister, 21 South Street. So since we met last week at the Tuesday hearing, I sent out an email blast to the Furnace Village Neighborhood Collaborative Group, about 175 people. Per your request, I suggested to folks that they focus instead on the February 13th, where Greg has offered kindly to come and speak to the district group, and we will be pushing to get folks to come out to that meeting so they have an opportunity to speak more directly. That likely will be at the Knights of Columbus or at the VFW. And we also, within that, laid out the timeline for Andrea, the information you had given me, which was that there will be a March 16th public hearing and then working towards the town meeting. We also are encouraging folks to watch this meeting tonight, so I hope folks will. I also spent a good chunk of the time on Saturday knocking on doors within the residential area. Didn't get everybody, but we had a meeting of about 15 to 18 people yesterday afternoon to get the temperature on the residential district, and I don't purport to speak on behalf of everybody. I don't think the condo owners were represented as part of that, and a majority of the district and the sewer district are actually the condominium owners. And I also don't purport to speak on behalf of the business owners. But safe to say that when the discussion came up at the meeting about the 16-acre parcel and then it went on for sale, the realtor listed it not just as suitable for 12, but suitable for townhomes and cluster housing. To say that our group is unsettled and nervous is really an understatement. Folks are very, very nervous about what's going to happen to our area. That would be one part of it. But my hope is that you can hear directly, and I would invite all of the members to come on February 13th. We're going to schedule it for 7 o'clock so folks can ask questions and hear more detail. I think it's safe to say our group is excited about the idea of the vision from the visioning charrette in October, because a lot of our folks were there to make it a walkable, more vibrant area. And folks are very excited about doing that and want to work with the town and and you folks to make that happen. Generally stated, we would love to have something that starts looking like Main Street. We understand things are different, but that's the vision people would like. I was at the Visioning Center, Visioning Charrette, and that's what a lot of people were talked about. We're very excited about sidewalks and arriving at something along those lines. So we're hopeful that can happen. There's no question that there's some differing views. Unlike the sewer betterment issue where everybody had a uniform view of let's work to get the cost down, here, by the very nature of it, there are going to be difference of opinions depending on where folks live, whether they're business owners, and where within the residential district that they live. To the extent that there was any consensus, and there was some amongst the residential folks who met yesterday, one would be absolutely against rezoning for that 16-acre parcel. It just, the feeling with the traffic on the neighborhood, and you've got a quaint, quiet, historic district. And I guess the best way I can frame it is a lot of folks were in favor of the Foundry property development because it was in lieu of an industrial or commercial use. So when you're talking about cluster housing, that seemed like a great idea to tip the balance more in favor of residential. People look at it very differently to the extent you're now talking about dropping that into a quiet, quaint residential neighborhood with the substantial impacts of traffic and so forth. The second was, and I can't say that this was unanimous, but I think the vast majority of folks want to keep the residential district residential. As I understand, there were two proposed categories of changes for the residential portion in the middle, one of which was to allow certain commercial and office use. So it could be retail, deli, bakery, presumably a donut shop, and so forth. Nothing would worry me more than, my property abuts the folks who are on 106. And whether it's me or there's somebody next to it, having a donut shop show up, because we don't know what's going to happen. Somebody could knock down a house and decide they want to put a donut shop because we've now allowed for of use, you know, a residential within this district, to allow uses as a matter of right that include retail outlets and so forth. You don't have the ability to control what's actually going to go in there ultimately. The second on the density. A lot of folks are also very concerned about what that means in terms of what you're proposing for the change in densities. And I have a couple questions at the end that our group had I'd like to put forward on that. I'd like you know, to hear on February 13th, we're going to encourage as many of our folks to come out as possible and speak to those issues so they can speak directly, because I don't purport to speak on behalf of the group more generally. A couple of questions. As I understand it, on the second component of the changes for density, you're proposing changing, instead of 1 acre minimum zoning, to change to 10,000 square foot per dwelling unit. And then there were also some other proposed changes with respect to within an existing structure, whether it's multifamily and so forth. I think our folks would appreciate hearing a little bit about what you're actually proposing with respect to the changes in density. For example, if this were to be adopted, could somebody who there's a historic structure on, and yet they have an acre, so they can add 3 more dwelling units to that? Or presumably they could knock down the structure and put 4 units there. And similarly, what can they do with respect to the structure itself? Could they break it up to have it change almost like condominiums or apartments? So we would be interested to hear a little bit more about that. But at the conclusion of the meeting, the consensus seemed to be we're very, very concerned about potential changes, and folks were very much expressing the desire that you know, we'd rather take a wait-and-see attitude as far as the residential district in the middle and see if things are going to work on either end of the district, and then if it makes sense. And a lot of the folks were sort of wondering, well, why, for example, have commercial in the middle district? It's all residential now. Why, when you've got either side with commercial, you wouldn't focus on those areas for that use? So can you speak a little bit to the issue of what's proposed with respect to the density changes in the residential district and how that would work?
Sure. Do you want to?
Well, I think that, you know,
This is Judy Barrett.
Okay.
Sorry.
I actually had a larger minimum lot area at one point, and I think the concern I heard from the board is that there's a real mix of lot sizes out there, and if we kept it at the current, which is what, 40, I think?
40, yeah.
I'm having trouble opening all my stuff here, but that would preclude any kind of additional investment in existing non-conforming lots. And so I think the interest I heard from the board was to try to make the minimum lot size more consistent with what's actually out there. That's what I heard. These are all policy issues, so I'll do whatever change you want, but I just want you to know, I think that was the discussion, and it is a real mix. You know, you got a wild mix of lot sizes out there.
Can you speak, though, to the issue of not only like somebody being able to put additional units on it, but as far as like existing structures, do these proposed zoning regulations provide that one could break it up into multiple units within the same historic structure, for example, say residence?
Before you speak, Judy, can you please twist the mic toward you?
Sure. The concern I heard was that there are some buildings out there that are considered historically important, and that the town wouldn't necessarily want to encourage the tear down of those buildings. So what I had mentioned to the board is that a couple of the communities I work in have a provision where an existing historic building could have interior change that might allow some additional densification in order to preserve the structure as a whole. So that was the idea, and that's why it's written right now. The draft is that it's a special permit, number one, so somebody can't just go do this, but also the Historical Commission gets to weigh in on it, whether it's significant and, you know, whether the historically important features of the building are preserved. So that was the logic, was just to sort of actually not encourage tearing down an existing building, but rather figuring out a way to preserve the shell of that which is considered significant.
One other question, the current zoning in the residential district allows for accessory uses, so folks can who are within the residential district can have things like certain types of home businesses up to 3 employees, you know, for certain recognized professions. So there's already some flexibility built in terms of how the properties can be used. But can somebody speak to why there was a suggestion about changing to some type of commercial zoning within the the Furnace Village residential portion? And what was the perceived benefit of changing that over to a commercial use that would allow bakeries and delis in that area that's historically purely residential? And I think it also would allow for offices as well.
Yeah, so the current draft is a business or professional use would be permitted as of right. A medical office would require a special permit. If that's not clear why the difference, it's really because of traffic and parking load.
I'm sorry, are you talking about Part 4, Appendix A? Because I only see that related to depots. Okay, very good. Never mind.
Thank you. Anything like a store retail use would be a special permit. The bakery or ice cream shop is listed as a permitted use. Some towns I work in, you know, neighbors want some amenities where they live and within sort of walking distance, and so an innocuous use like that to me it's innocuous, it may not be to you, a use like that where you don't have drive-through, it's clearly kind of a walkable sort of place. Some people would love to have that, but I need to know if that's what you want. So, you know, this is sort of me as a planner trying to make up what I think is like this perfect neighborhood, and you guys may think this lady's out of her mind. And so that is listed as a permitted use. The other permitted use that's listed right now in this draft is a personal service establishment. So something like a hair salon or a barber shop or, God, those are typically the ones you think of, but, you know, maybe a family child care home or something like that.
So I think fitting within the vision of the October Visioning Center, or charrette from 2018, as I understood it, what people were talking about walkable is that from the existing residences, you walk up to the Five Corners area and you get an ice cream and so forth, but not bringing the commercial, you know, retail donut. I mean, first of all, traffic is a nightmare in that stretch anyway.
Sure is,
and
I
to have
know.
cars entering and exiting from a hair salon on 106 between Pequonnet and South Street, it's practically not doable. And I can say I think the vast majority of our group is adamantly against sort of bringing that type of commercial use within the existing residential. Feel it would destroy the historic nature of the neighborhood. But again, you know, and I'm hopeful that maybe if you're able to come as well, I don't have the authority to invite you, but for February 13th, when we're going to
I'm booked anyway.
get our folks out. Okay.
Yeah.
But I think the opportunity for
Sure.
more input from more people, you know, can speak on their.
I mean, I think we understand your concerns, but you also think that, you know, at some point, the business zone was established in that area, and whether that's perfect or not right now, I mean, that's sort of what we're talking about right now. I mean, you could say, well, why is there a restaurant there next to a house? You know, because someone set that zoning, however many years ago. That's where that was set then, and you know,
Yeah.
that's what we're looking at right now. But it's not necessarily trying to force it on anyone either.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, these, you know, even the same with the Main Street. You have businesses, and then there are homes. I mean, there was never
Keep in mind,
perfect
there's
line,
two
right? Yeah.
businesses there now. That was sort of the genesis of it.
Yeah. Remember, we did a land use map.
Who
at one
says that
point.
business is always going to be a used car dealer?
Right.
You know, who says that next to it is always going to be?
No, I'm only speaking to ones that are currently zoned
Right,
residential.
but
Sure,
we don't
sure.
have that luxury. We
Yeah.
can't spot zone each.
There was never a perfect line. Someone set a line somewhere, and maybe someone said, well, why is there a restaurant with a drive-through next to my house? And that's just where it ended up. Maybe it was a good idea or a bad idea, but that's where we are now. And we're looking at other options, but not necessarily trying to, you know, force them on anybody, I think.
Yeah, I definitely think that's the
and-
case. I don't think anybody's trying to force
No,
anything. I think we're
no.
trying to have a conversation.
But I want to say this, and look, you know, if that, right, if, you know, something like that, we don't want any commercial in that residential stretch, fine, because there's plenty on each side of it, and want to keep it mostly residential. I would say, you know, we should, I think it's important to keep the accessory uses in there, because quite
yeah.
a few people are
They are.
self-employed. And I think we need to stay consistent with the zoning we have in town. But you said something, Dale, that, you know, you said, we love the feel of Main Street, we'd like to become that. Average lot size in Main Street is 2,800 square feet.
Yeah. tiny.
when everybody's nostalgic for those old walkable neighborhoods, that, 2,000, 5,000, look at all around here. So when we looked at getting this down, and I thought 10,000 was being conservative, but I could see, and again, all due respect, it's not, I don't own the property, so, but as someone who I'm a member of the Historical Commission, I design and build houses for a living sometimes, I could see a streetscape there of, additional buildings, not Dunkin' Donuts, not a high-rise apartment, buildings that are in the context of what's there. I could see that being added. I could see that adding quite a bit of value to the property owners. I could see that adding the flavor that we want and eventually need if we're going to have a walkable neighborhood. And so that's why, I would think long and hard as property owners to have the vision. If you look at this, people, I understand people are against change, and people so often, we just want to keep everything green space. We want to, I was always told that land was going to stay treed. We hear that, but it's a unique opportunity. Not many folks have this opportunity, but where your guys' properties lie on a major thoroughfare, that traffic's not going to go down at all. But now, 10 years from now, when this will be a walkable neighborhood, there will be amenities there, and folks, the demand is going to be there. Folks are going to want smaller homes. The days of the 4,000 square foot houses out here are over. Our kids don't want that. They grew up in the age of excess. Look at on Weber Estates, the average size out there is 1,700 square feet. So I'm saying through we would do it through a special permit process where we would look to create an aesthetically pleasing, historically derived, small neighborhood.
So, right, and the reason I asked that question about what was contemplated for the density is we were sort of struggling to understand what was being proposed for the residential area in particular, and was trying to find out from how these regulations on the residential side and the increased density would work. In other words, how are these tailored and to arrive at what results? So if somebody has 30,000 square feet and there's an existing house, they could presumably knock it down, and then could they put in apartments that are not, not owner-occupied units? These were some of the questions that were coming up. People were trying to understand for the property that's next to them, what does this mean? And those are the kind of issues I think you'll find at February 13th that folks are going to be asking about.
If I may ask a question that kind of might help answer that is, where do you have the frontage requirement on the residential?
Trying to find
I mean,
it.
because that would sort of help picture what could, we don't really necessarily allowing multiple buildings on these lots, right? But the frontage would sort of help kind of say, you could say, well, I'm going to preserve this house here, but then put another house next here with this X amount of frontage.
Yeah. Well, frontage is frontage
Yeah.
is just one, just
Well, it would be unless you allow multiple buildings on a lot.
Right.
It's
It is
either
a
frontage or multiple
frontage.
It
buildings.
has it on the,
100
it's on
feet
the,
of frontage.
100 feet, yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Which,
Yeah.
yeah.
it's on the back, just
The back one, okay, right, yeah.
there you go.
Okay,
There
this
you
is the
go.
last one that we just had added, thank you.
Okay.
So,
Can I just ask the neighbors, it's a rhetorical question, it's more a question just to, for you to think about. Presently now, if you're living in the Foundry Street area and you want a cup of coffee, do you get in your car to drive to get a cup of coffee? Or would you walk that same distance if there was a sidewalk? I don't want an answer. I just want you to think about
Well,
it.
the answer is yes, because all these folks came to the visioning charrette. It's absolutely what people want, to be able to walk up and get a cup of
And the
coffee
question
or ice
is,
cream.
would you walk all the way to Depot to get a cup of coffee? Or would you need to have it be closer for you to actually stay out of your car? And I think that's where,
I think crossing the
That-
streets is the hardest part,
right.
for those
but
of us that might live on a busier street, it's to get across the street and then get across the other street.
So
That's
we
maybe the
can
right, yeah.
address crosswalks, but we can't get you closer to Depot Street.
We're a fit
We-
neighborhood. We like to run and bike and everything. We'll be right up there.
Fit for your son.
Yeah, morning
Fit for your
calisthenics.
son.
Yeah. Well, he goes to Bridgewater State, so that's a little further.
But, you know, the real answer to that question is they're going to do whatever they do now, which is probably drive, because it's not a very safe stretch. But, and you guys are all familiar with mass grants now, so given 10 years from now, or 5 years from now, where we have shown the state that we brought in sewer, we improved our infrastructure, we cleaned our groundwater because of sewerage, we created compact neighborhoods, we created and enhanced historic districts. You know, for side note, you guys should, why don't we have I say, as a member of the Historical Commission, we should get a local historic district down there, because that's the only true
Well,
way.
I wondered about that, too.
That's the only true way to truly protect your properties. You can have all the national historic districts you want. They don't do anything. They give you a plaque, that's it. But when the state wants to see all these things that we're talking about, walkable neighborhoods, sustainability, small A affordable housing, you know, diversified housing types, those give you prime positioning for mass grants. And that's what we're gonna need to get the sidewalks in and get the street.
Yeah, and I think our folks are excited about that. And when I'm questioning the density, I'm not purporting to say there's a consensus of what folks within our residential area think about that, but I'm asking some questions to help elicit some further thought on it. And if I may just quickly, I was asked to pass along 2 other comments, one of which was, there's a sense in the district that we've absorbed an awful lot recently with the whole Target development, the Avalon Apartments, and now 60-some units coming in on the Foundry. That's the reality of the perception. People feel like they're absorbing a lot already, which makes folks, and the entire sewer and the construction, right, on top. It's a lot that folks have been asked to absorb in our district, and we sensed that at town meeting, that people were sympathetic to that, about what our district was going through. And with that in mind, if I understand correctly, you're working towards a March 16th public hearing date. Presumably, the idea is to have a vote at that point in time with your final proposed regulations, and then with enough time to get it on the warrant. Folks feel rushed, because most of us just found out about it, you know, a little more than a week ago. So I'm just passing that along as folks are trying to absorb it. It feels really rushed for what can be huge changes in the neighborhood. But again, almost all of these folks were at that October 2018 thing, when it wasn't just sort of in our backyard, but talking about what would you like for this district. And Mary was up there with the whiteboard and, you know, taking folks' ideas and different tables, and, you know, walkable, vibrant neighborhood, you know, that's what folks were looking for, and will be, I think, very supportive of.
Human scale.
And frankly, that's what we're trying to do. But, and you know, as a resident a half mile up the street, yeah, sure, but you know, there's benefits to commercial development too. And let's face it, the traffic was already on 106. We're trying to, on the heels of sewage, yeah, you went through all that and how it shut everything down. But now we're trying to take advantage of that for, you know, you went through pain, but you also have, you can look at it both ways. You have a fantastic opportunity to create a new neighborhood and create added value to your property. Might not be what you want to do. We're all different. I understand that. But, you know, how I see this, and we even have some differences above the board here, but you guys, like I said, you guys are here, you're in the kitchen, you're seeing the soup being made. So we're talking, you know, there's ways to do things permitting wise. Some things by right. Remember, I gave the example last week. If you have a 40,000 square foot lot in Easton, it's all contiguous uplands, and if you have 150 feet of frontage on a public road, you have a buildable lot, and nobody can stop you from doing whatever is allowed in that district there. But what we've been doing more and more when I was talking about compact neighborhoods or flexible development, those aren't necessarily tools that increase density. But they are tools that allow, they can be used for that, but they also can be used, the special permit projects that we do, they allow, when something's allowed by right, there's no public input, it just happens. Next thing you know, a building goes up next door to you. Hey, it's allowed by zoning, it's that. But given that we do have such a unique neighborhood out here, you know, the commercial, the residential with a historical component, which I'd like to see, you know, restored, and then more commercial, these changes, if we do them by special permit, I'm a fan of that because it allows, first of all, it allows the board to work sort of, not a joint venture, but work hand in hand with the developer so that we can really, or a property owner, it doesn't have to be a developer, but we can really help mold what we're looking for in the town. Because, you know, the nature of zoning, very often you just kind of get the lowest common denominator. Someone comes in, oh, they just want to put up a strip mall because the bylaw says they can do it. But we'd like to, you know, create a little more added value.
Just one thing I want to clarify also is none of our group are trying to prevent the family from developing that property across the way. To the contrary, we are all friends with the parents there and for nearly 30 years. And we understand that that's going to happen. It's probably going to end up, you know, with 12 homes, or if they do some flexible development, maybe a few more than that. But you couple that with the other 60, within 50 yards of most of us in this district, you're talking about, you know, 70 new dwelling units coming in a very small area. So just keep that in mind when you're talking about additional changes. It's a lot of change already, you know, within 50 to 75 yards of this area.
Sure, but I would say, and I can't speak for anybody else, if someone doesn't like that, they don't like that. But part of that compact neighborhood, we're getting 2 turning lanes and we're getting an intersection constructed there, which we all know, as a resident of 31 years of we need that. So,
our group has generally supported that project, by the way.
So I get that, you know, and that's a housing type that we desperately need. House is capped at 1,700 square feet, 2 bedrooms, architectural approval, and I don't know if you've seen any of the presentations, but they're New England-style homes. It's going to be a development like no other that's been done around here. And it's going to help, if I may, it's going to help set the stage for what we want to do. Because there's value in good architecture.
Right, and we invited Rick Lincoln and Walter to come to speak to our group, and they did, and we had about 50 to 60 members there, and there were questions on all sorts of issues and everything, but I think for the most part, people saw this as a good thing, more vibrancy for the area. So this is not a group that is against change. So folks were generally supportive of that, and the idea of the public access easement, which I understand will be part of those plans, I hope, you know, to link up with the Bay Circuit Trail. There's a lot of good there. Our concern was just make sure it's not walled off from us, you know, by virtue of the neighborhood association.
Absolutely. You know, as I've told you, that
Right.
going in, the first thing we told them, you need a light and we need to tie the green necklace together. And we need architectural approval. That's the first 3 things.
And we've been communicating all of that to our group, and we've also let folks know that they're going to be presenting their subdivision plan in February, so if anybody wants to have any particular concerns, they can come and have that heard. But my sense is folks, you know, feel that it can be a good thing, but there's traffic impact, and it's a lot of dwelling units coming in already before you're even considering any further changes here.
I think from my perspective, I think you hit the nail on the head. Everybody would love to see that area be more like, you know, Main Street America. But I think that the finances of that is something that goes through my mind constantly when we've been going through, and this is something that we've been talking about in many sessions with Judy. And you know, I represent developers all the time. And one of the biggest issues that you see with developers is how are they going to get their financing? And one of the big issues with how they're going to get their financing is, well, are they going to be able to get a project permitted? And is the scale of the project going to be significant enough where they can actually follow through and it's going to be successful? Those are sort of the 2 big picture items. Now, if you're in a city like Boston, the permitting is not an issue because Boston is such a hot market that people will pay to sit and go through that antiquated process in Boston for 3 years. For 3 years. Because the payout is so huge.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen here in Easton. So there's going to have to be, I think, some certain, this is where I come down on it. And again, there are differing viewpoints on the board. This is all part of the discussion. From my perspective, there's got to be some certainty. So we've got to put something together. And this is, frankly, more with the outskirt areas and not so much with the residential areas that you guys are really concerned about. But there's got to be some certainty to the process. There's got to be something that's by right. And there's got to be some allowance where the development can be significant enough where it's going to be worth their while. So where does the residential fit into that picture? And I think, you know, to a certain extent, it's creating a tipping point of customers, really, to support some of the commercial investment that's going to lead to this sort of walkable neighborhood and this Main Street feel that I think we all would like to see. Now, there's a give and a take, and I think we all have it. I want to make it clear, I certainly have an open mind as to what the density ultimately looks like and things of that nature. This is a discussion, and I'm very, I'm glad that you've taken such steps to bring all this to the forefront. Those are the issues that are going on in my mind. I think we've got a great opportunity here with the sewer. I mean, there aren't an awful lot of communities in Massachusetts that have an opportunity at this point in time where we really can kind of shape this neighborhood and, to a certain extent, the village district down here, because of the sewer and the fact that it's new. But, but there is this reality of the finances, the stuff you're not just going to snap your finger and Main Street's going to appear. That's not going to happen.
Understood, and that's the message we're sending out to our group, that this is an opportunity to achieve something. It's going to take some time, but you got to put the right tools in place. So just ask to keep in mind that those considerations for the developers typically are not looking at the perspective of the existing owners. It's really more profit and loss, right, if they can make this work and so forth. But these types of considerations likely are different depending which of the 3 sub-districts you're talking about.
Sure.
So they can vary.
Just a quick question about that. Someone was asking about frontage. Hi, Michael Heichel. I'm just trying to get answers on this chart with minimum frontages as it pertains to each sub-district. Does that kind of set the stage where we're at on that, or?
It's just a draft, I mean.
Just a
that's what-
draft?
It's all malleable
Okay.
at this point. We're throwing it against the wall.
There was sort of a question out there as to, how do these residential new regulations would, what could actually happen in there? So
Well, some
frontage
of
would be
it-
one factor, right? And then,
In the lot area and the setbacks, I mean, all of it comes
No,
together. But again, the whole frontage issue was looking at the actual lots out there.
Yeah.
You've got this mixed bag, you got some larger ones, you got some smaller ones, you've got some with 150 feet of frontage, you have some with less. So when you're trying to write zoning, one of the things you have to do is sort of think about what is the standard? And, those are changeable numbers, but it's really based on trying to do some just physical analysis of the lots.
so if we were thinking about, say, like the White House with the large yard to the side, then you could have keep the White House historical. Under what we sort of proposing is maybe the White House would stay historic, and then the other 100 or whatever, or 200, might be another new building that would have a historic review process, during part of the build. That's sort of what this is sort of about, right? I mean,
Well, and I'll answer your earlier question, why I think it's important to do this all at once. Because we have, to Bob's point, I understand, what you're talking about, the surety, but that's a moot point in the middle, okay? It's, for the most part, there's no large project in the middle. We're talking, look at the lots. Let's just say we approve 10,000 square feet, per unit. You'd be looking at, people would be proposing, some small homes, be a couple duplexes, maybe one, or maybe a large addition onto one of the historical buildings and do it as condos. I mean, it could be, any residential use that we wanted to allow, I guess. Up towards Eastman Street, that's where the large parcels are. That's where you're gonna get.
No, I agree. I'm more talking about the development that's already been approved.
And then-
That went to the, we've absorbed a lot comment.
Right,
That's
but here's the
what I
thing,
was
so let's
getting
say if you didn't do anything, let's just status quo in the middle. Let's see what happens. Well, okay. So let's say everything else, so we passed 2 sub-districts in the middle, we just leave as is. Well, yeah, you're probably still gonna get a subdivision out on South Street, right? People have land rights, right? And, hopefully the compact neighborhood's approved and goes in and you get the light, which makes everybody's life a little nicer, safer and easier. And, then maybe there's some residential, I would think the only thing you'd see at the beginning up on the Eastman Street end would probably be residential, because there's already a bunch of empty commercial, in that mall. And then down towards Five Corners, yeah, you could see some some reuse, some rehab, some knockdown and rebuild. You know, it could be creative in there. So we go forward 10 years, and I say, okay, yeah, we got a little commercial growth here, and we had some commercial, and we had some residential use growth over here, but we weren't able to stitch together a neighborhood, because in the middle, you know, if we don't have sidewalks, we don't have anything walkable, if we didn't have the investment, you know, when someone's property goes up in value, then they're able to invest. Oh, we want to put some green space out there. We want to make it walkable. We put out some landscaping. Without that happening, we would still have, you know, a space in the middle that hasn't been able to benefit from, you know, and participate in the economic development. And we would just have grown our commercial a little bit on each end, as opposed to being one contiguous walkable neighborhood.
If I can speak just to that issue about where the opportunities lie, and so right now, within the middle, you are most likely talking about 60, the Foundry property, and likely 12, 13, whatever it might be, on the 16-acre parcel. So it's a lot already in the middle. Once you're done with that, you're really talking about...
Microphone, please. Flashing light.
People are watching.
Sorry, let me, so to speak to the opportunity for the development, right now, you're already talking about 60 units or 62 coming in on the Foundry property, most likely.
47.
47's down, it was 60 the last time I had heard, but.
47.
And then likely another 12, 13, or whatever it might be on the 16-acre parcel. So it's a lot already within that. After that, you're talking about some relatively smaller parcels. And folks are nervous about that, but so your opportunity for the driving the economic development, truth be told, really is more on either end, I think. I'm not saying that there aren't some opportunities in between, but in your balancing of things, your driver is going to be on either side where you've got your larger parcels.
I disagree. I mean, I guess, you know, it depends what you're talking about. But what I see, when you get back to diversified housing type, not everybody wants to live in an apartment. Not, you know, everyone's, that's fine, but that's not for everybody. And in this part of town, where there is going to be an advance in services, you know, I think you're missing the boat. I think the folks along 106 that have properties, there's a fantastic opportunity to create meaningful, attractive residential units. Now, I mean they have to, but the opportunity is there for that. And that is, you know, small homes, you know, whatever it is. I don't even consider the South Street property, that's really not related to what we're doing. It sounds like we're going to be pulling that out of the district that didn't fly. That's still a piece of land that's just going to be developed. That's been there for a long time. So let's put that aside. That's not really tied into what we're doing now. But okay, so you have the, you know, the small, you have the compact neighborhood. Okay, but it's still sort of its own little community. It flows out, but that stretch of those, you know, those historic homes along 106, there's a fantastic opportunity to create a new Main Street, but you have to want to do it.
Right, I think our folks just like to make sure that those historic homes stay and they're not knocked down, and under the current proposed zoning, you'd
It's
have
already in our draft right there.
commercial.
And we're telling you to make it a local historic district, which will give it the only true protection it'll have.
One other quick note, because ultimately everything's going to have to be passed at town meeting, you know, 2/3 vote. And so I think one of the things you have to get out there is there's a sentiment in town that we've had too much residential development. I'm not one of those. I actually think this is great with a lot of the residential development, but I think you need to address for the town generally about how the economics work, why this actually does add to the tax base, and why it's not a drain or a burden on the schools. A lot of folks are of that opinion. I happen not to be one of them. I don't agree with that, but it's out there. And in the end of the day, I think we'd like to have something passed that promotes this type of walkable, you know, vision going forward. But at the end of the day, all these ideas, if they don't get passed at town meeting, and there's a strong sentiment out there that the town focuses too much on residential, and I agree with you, Greg, we've talked about this before, that
We built 16 homes last year.
there are a lot of vacancies in the industrial park, right? And you have a lot of vacancies for existing retail stores that aren't sticking around a lot. So I'm with you, I understand that, but a lot of folks in town may not be aware of that, and I think we need to get the word out a little more about how all of that works and how the economics make sense, that this is a positive for the town to increase the economic tax base.
The lady in the back row has raised her hand a couple times.
Oh, sure.
Arlene Keach, I own 559 Foundry Street, and I wondered if you talk a little bit more, unless I missed it earlier, I hope not. We have a 3-lane highway, and people's property comes right up to the street. How, when, what would the process be to make this walkable? Where is the visioning for this walking, getting across the highway?
So,
Is this an eminent domain that's going to take years and you'll be taking people's front yards? The only way that I'm aware of.
so the first, I talk about that two ways. One is well, so if the project at the Foundry site is approved, part of that, like I said, is lights and passing lanes. All that land comes from the Foundry site. It would create the first engineering sketch. There's a devoted right-hand turning lane on Pequonnet, which would come a little bit from that park that's right there, right near your building. And it's kind of wide there. This isn't. So in the future, okay, so the vision of this, again, going out 10 years is, you would like to see sidewalks on both sides of the street. And certainly, there would, I'm assuming, not being privy to the exact road layout, and I'm assuming there would be some, there would probably be some eminent domain takings to grab a little engine, much like we just went through for the expansion of 123, the widening, which is going to happen next year. But so the vision is, we have all those apartments up at Target and a fair amount of businesses. We have an opportunity for lots of services and existing services up at Five Corners. There's a couple of beautiful ponds. There's that emerald necklace that I talked about. People, Dale brought it up earlier, part of the Foundry project, you drive out back, there's going to be a dedicated parking lot with 4 or 5 spots to access the Bay Circuit Trail, which goes, if you go on the Conservation Commission's website, to the trail tab, it's much more extensive than I even thought. It goes all the way to the north, and it goes out to the cranberry bogs, and then it goes up by me in Pequonnet up to.
It addresses that part, but it doesn't address from Pequonnet down to Five Corners, where all the historical houses are.
Right, but that's where the sidewalks would come in. Right.
So that would have to be an eminent domain, which is a lengthy time process, correct? Is that the
Well,
plan?
We just did 123. They did it in under 6 months.
And I mean, the easement on Depot Street, it was pretty wide, but it's not like a huge taking. People probably know where their property line is, and you might know you have a shorter backyard than you actually have. And when you look at the way it lays out, we're not looking at the exact road, but they fit the 2 lanes and the sidewalk on one side relatively easy. I mean, if there were sidewalks on both sides, that might be a wider easy.
Yeah, I mean, again, we don't know the existing conditions out there, but yes, there would be some eminent domain taking.
Honestly, that's a whole separate project that when DPW ever gets the design money to do, there'll be a lot of public process around it, and it's not part of zoning here. It's the redevelopment and
part of
upgrade
planning and
of
visioning,
that.
so that's why
It is, I mean,
It's-
sidewalks and stuff, it's just gonna
If it's not part
happen.
of this project in design,
But
I mean,
there'll be
that's part of
plenty
the
of public
visioning part of
input.
it, but if you're not putting it in and doing it now actively, are you going to be encouraging all these businesses and encouraging all these new homes, and you're going to be able to walk here and walk to the Green Necklace, and who knows, maybe go to downtown Boston on the trails, but if you don't do that now with an active plan through whatever, so what I'm hearing is, it's not going to be just an Easton plan. This is going to be a bigger DPW state plan because it's a state road.
I meant
And
our
I'm seeing
DPW.
10 years down line, not in our immediate or very soon.
Well, I said earlier,
I suppose is that a yes or a no?
I opened this up tonight by saying it's a 10-year plan to get the sidewalks. I can say this, as someone who's been on the planning board for many years, I sit in many meetings, and when I sit in with the town administrator and the director of the DPW and our land planner, and we talk about things like this, it is one of the many goals of the folks to get sidewalks on this road in about a 10-year cycle. And that's mostly based on what it takes, first of all, to get the money. We all know how hard it is for towns to get any money. You really need to get grants through the state, and you need to get slotted in. Look how long it took to get the light up on Union Street.
So we can tell people in the neighborhood that this is not part of what this rezoning, redesigning plan is. It's a totally, like you said, totally separate project.
The sidewalks on
Right, and
Foundry
we're-
Street will
Sidewalks to get
happen.
people from here to there, the taking of, by
We're
eminent
the Planning and
domain.
Zoning Board, and that's what, we're setting up zoning. Like, when I opened up, I said, this is your 10-year cycle's out, things don't, whether for good or bad, things don't happen overnight, municipally, because of all the laws and because of financing and property rights and a myriad of other things. But
Like my landscaping.
to get where we want it to be, we have a plan, we have a vision. We're here sharing it. We don't do anything, there's nothing behind the scenes. We're out here sharing this with folks. We're listening to their concerns. We work hand in hand. Sometimes we agree, sometimes we disagree. If I hear something I don't agree with or I think it's wrong, I'd say, well, here's why we're doing it. And look at, bottom line, if you don't want it, you don't have to have it. But I think that's an opportunity missed for this neighborhood. And I understand there's been a lot of development down to that end, and that development's going to continue. Nothing that we've done, because the land exists and the road's there. What we're trying to do is slow down. The traffic's already slow enough, but let's create areas that can be enjoyed as a pedestrian, because it's gonna be hard to travel from point A to point B. And I'm saying the opportunity is there with vision to create desirable workspaces and live spaces, which add to property values. And that's why we're doing it. We're trying to create, there's only one way we're gonna create another Main Street. We have to create it. And it can be done, and the same thing's gonna happen on 138. We worked hard for 4 or 5 years, and Ed Walsh is about to break ground on that fantastic property on Korea's Plaza. It's not gonna happen overnight, that whole stretch, but that part, 123 coming out of Brockton's already filled. So instead of creating just another commercial strip that has every franchise in America stacked behind it, let's keep with what we've been doing in Easton, and let's continue to create a landscaping and an architectural and a life quality that benefits all of us. Let's keep, they say keep Austin weird. Let's keep Easton different. We have a gem here. We're trying to keep it that way. But if we do nothing, we've already seen what happens. It falls. You need good planning, good zoning to allow opportunity for landowners, and that's what we're trying to do.
And I think that, if I could just add, that's a terrific question, but you also have to remember that if this gets passed and we have new zoning, that doesn't mean that, the Shaw's is gonna go out of business tomorrow, and that the whole area is going to change overnight. That's not how it works. We're trying to put the architecture in place for others to participate in this process in a way that, we think can be useful, and for all the reasons that Greg really just pointed out. But I guess my point is that if this gets through, it's not going to change overnight. So the 10-year, prospect with the sidewalks doesn't really look like all that much time when you're talking about, what's this going to look like in 10 years, 15, 30, 50 years?
My age it does.
Well, sure, but I guess my point is, this isn't going to affect you overnight either.
But think how fast, I'm 54, and I'm like, think how fast 10 years go now, doesn't it blow your mind? 10 years is gonna be here before you know it. And it's time, it really is, the time flies by. And
I was saying that 10 years ago.
He was almost my age when I started working with him.
almost. But anyways, so,
Can I just address the point to follow up to Arlene's comment? I think you'll find a lot of people are actually very excited about the opportunity to create a better district. I think we all recognize there are areas.
but you gotta do it to create it.
No, I understand. Nobody's trying to stop this from happening. We're talking about tweaking things here and there. And so we're trying to put out a very positive message about this, but you should also be aware. I was going on knocking a lot of doors on Saturday, including a bunch of old timers. There's a healthy dose of skepticism out there when they hear the sidewalk thing, because it's been going on for decades that people have been talking about it. So when you talk about walkable, and if you're trying to sell something to do some changes within this residential district because you want to make it walkable for people, people are really skeptical about, I really want sidewalks to come in. You know, I think it would be great, and to link up to I go running on the Bay Circuit Trail all the time between and around the loop and come back around. And, you know, as it is now, when I go over there, I have to tippy-toe to not fall in the creek when I go, because I'm not going to go on the street side, go over the creek to get in between. But you just have to be aware, a lot of folks have heard stuff about the sidewalks for decades. You know, I just met with some of the old timers on this. And the more we can do to convey to them that there's a real likelihood of this happening, the better, because I think you'll get more people to buy into it.
Well, I'd say the proof is in the pudding. And whether you like past or present and current administrations of this town or not, a lot of things have gotten done in the last 15 years. And towns have no money. I was asked to stand up at town meeting this year to speak about the marijuana grow facility. And I thought, you know, I usually stay quiet on that stuff, but I thought, well, you know what? There's an opportunity for us to get $3 million. And I'm involved in enough things. I'm the planning board's chair on the capital planning. It's so hard. Anybody that's ever volunteered at any time or is employed in this, it's incredibly hard for towns to get any money, given this, just the liabilities continue to grow. And the expense, with the rules in Massachusetts, expense to construct things is incredibly expensive. And so I think realistically, the only way, or the most successful way for us to get sidewalks in this corridor are to take advantage of the sewer, to create zoning, to show the state. And there's the one thing that can't be denied, the record of this town over the last 10 years to receive mass grants from the from the hard work of the folks that work in this town, a little bit of help on people on the side, but most of these people in the town. And by putting, it's not like I'm saying, well, if we don't do this zoning, we won't get the mass grant. To me, they just go, I've been in the system long enough, they just go hand in hand. And it's just good planning, it's good sense. To create a product, in this case, zoning, that can invite walkability.
Our group had an extraordinarily positive experience working with the town on the sewer issues. We felt like they had the open door with Connor, Michael, Stephanie. The trustees went in to meet them on the condo issues and so forth. And there's a lot of feel-good that came out of that, like we're a neighborhood and folks are coming together and working with the town as opposed to being suspicious of what the town is. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for a real positive momentum going forward. So I hope, I don't want to be being misconstrued in the sense that I think our group can be very positive and supportive of this. What we're really talking about is some of the details and what some of the particular concerns are. And folks, you know, at the February 13th, will have an opportunity to be heard as well, because per your request, we didn't tell our legions of folks to come here tonight, but instead to try to focus on the 13th.
I've got a question. This is Mary Landry. I live at 15 Pequannocket. So along the 106, how does it happen? There's some vision in your head. There's visions.
There's a lot of things in my head.
There's visions in the individual property owners' heads of what their potential is, and how do you make it be a cohesive neighborhood with character, you know.
Special permit.
Design guidelines.
You know.
I mean,
I have a disagreement.
So design guidelines, I mean, you know, the majority of us do not know how this works. And if you can educate us a little bit on it, then
So there's
it
different
would
schools
help.
of thought about this. I mean, this is kind of a fun discussion. I mean,
Absolutely.
one approach is to be, to kind of require anything that's different from a single-family home on a 40,000 square foot lot, anything other than that, to go through a discretionary special permit process. And what that means is that someone has to apply to the board and may get turned down. So to the point about financing, it's that from the developer's point of view, it's always, how do I know what I'm going to be able to do? because it affects their ability to get financed. And the other way to think about it is to say, to be able to sort of guarantee a right that might be different from a single-family home on 40,000 square feet, subject to a review process that doesn't allow the board to deny the use, but does allow the board to put conditions on the approval. So for example, if you're going to do cottage homes on 10,000 square foot lots, you know, that's permitted as of right, but you're going to have to meet certain standards about the design of the buildings, the kind of landscaping treatment that's required, how the site plan is going to work. In other words, the safety, the operation of the plan. So those are two different ways of thinking about permitting, and developers typically prefer the latter because they know that the use is going to be approved. And the question is, how many hurdles do I have to go through on the design of my project? Whereas when it's a special permit, they don't know if they're going to get approved. And so it just increases this sense of risk. And those are two very different ways of thinking about permitting, and I think it comes down to what does the town want to accomplish in this area? So if somebody says to me, you know, we want to allow a little more investment in this area, something that doesn't become wildly inconsistent with what's there, you know, and at the same time kind of gets us some more tax revenue, I'd say, all right, you need to think about how do you allow something as of right, but impose qualitative standards. And the board can do that. The other way to think about it is the special permit, which I think is the custom that's been in place in Easton. And, you know, in the world of planners, which I'm a planner, right? So in the world of planning, we're discouraging communities from relying excessively on special permits because it does create this additional sense of risk to the developer and actually can thwart the kind of investment that is sought when you're trying to do a rezoning. To the community that's used to operating that way, it's scary to give it up. So I'm just taking I'm having a fun kind of debate with this with the board, but ultimately the board's got to tell me, what do you want to do?
So I'm going to answer it a little differently. All right, so by right, yeah, whatever type of zoning we're talking about. What's the residential? Okay, by right, you can, you know, if you meet certain, if you have certain land area, certain setbacks, and boom, you can go in and build this thing. Oh, and it's supposed to have rich architecture and landscaping. But now, as someone who has worked in the field for 35 years and has been on this side of the table for 15 years, and I know the vast majority of the players that we're going to be dealing with. And by that I mean, I shouldn't say players, but it's 99% of our projects are the same civil engineers, and 99% of our projects are the same, you know, developers. And for the purpose of this, let's just talk about the residential thing on this. But Bob's and Judy said, you know, on the outskirts, bigger project, there might be some merit. But how we've done business in Easton for the last 5 or 6 years, and we were encouraged, you encouraged me on, you started this with a special permit many years ago. And,
Oh, I was arguing about it then.
no, you turned me on to it. And what the practice has been, the planning director and the planning board chair, whoever that was, would meet with project proponent ahead of time. They come and say, hey, we're thinking about, you know, doing this. What do you think? And through, you know, it's all about, you know, because right, developers or landowners, you know, want some certainty, want some predictability. So when we're able to sit down and say, well, look, if you look at, for example, duplexes. Planning board took over duplexes about 3 years ago, and got basically, we said, you know what? We've told them, we said, make them attractive, and you can have it, you know, if it makes sense on a certain piece of land. Because we got so tired of just seeing two simple little boxes put together. I'm like, let's raise the stakes a little bit. It doesn't really cost more money to add a little bit of detail and give it a little thought. And we, the planning board, we've been able to change the culture on that. Go back and look at the last 5 or 6 duplexes over the last 3 or 4 years that have been permitted in this town. And they're some of the nicest duplexes you've seen. And you know, it's worked out well for the landowners. And it's worked out well for the folks that bought them. So to me, this, you know, the middle core here, the residential neighborhood, perfect example, because it is, right, it touches on a historical district. Let's just say there's not a local historic district there for now. If something were to pass and we were looking at smaller units or a larger unit with multiple, we'd want it to fit in to the neighborhood. We'd want it to tie, you can create new history too, but we'd want some thought put into the design. And folks aren't afraid to do that. Sometimes you just have to tell them that, because some people just get so used to, hey, they just want to, they think a box, simple box with vinyl siding is the way to go. Like, you know what, when you really analyze it, adding a little bit more detail and adding some richness of character doesn't really affect the cost. So much of the cost is in labor these days. It doesn't really affect the price. And then they realize, oh, it actually works out better. They get a more attractive product, and the landowner's property value goes up. So, but it doesn't happen, it wouldn't happen if we weren't there
But you can do that.
ramming it down their throats.
But you can do it with design standards.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
but-
hearing you guys say the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You're trying to get
but it
design
doesn't-
in.
But I'm telling you, those haven't worked too well in this town. That's all. I'm just talking more from experience. And I don't, let's not beat a dead horse.
And we've added hundreds of units with a special permit, you know, multifamily. We've added, and then, you know, more than not, the residential construction has been special permit versus
And there's
conventional.
no,
So
I understand that.
no one
It's-
complains.
one way to work, and it works.
People have been happy.
And
It's a
people,
policy issue.
people go out, they get a special permit, and they build it, and they make money. And so, I mean, it's not necessarily,
And there's a project,
it's not a dead end. I mean, it's.
Right.
there's a very large project we permitted in the last few years. I don't want to get too specific just because we're on TV. But the original version of that was, remember Stephanie and I, we almost choked on our coffee cups. So like, oh, please don't bring this to Easton. Destroy everybody's property value. But the final version of that, through some very productive meetings and professionalism, it's fantastic. But, you know, and that goes back to Easton is a little different. And I want Easton, don't we all want Easton to continue to stand out from its neighbors for its richness of character? You know, I do. I don't want it to just blend into every other community. If I see, you know, so that's, you know, but, so maybe that's a very long-winded answer, but that's, you know, I think the sensitivity of this middle area needs a special permit so we can ensure, I think it's a better way to ensure what you folks are looking to, what you'd like to have in your neighborhood.
Hi, John O'Donnell at 14 Paquonicket Avenue. So, Greg, I know you threw out the 16 acres for a little bit later, but if we could bring it back in, are you capable of zoning that property separate of what you're trying to do on 106, or are you not capable of doing that?
Oh, absolutely, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I mean,
Well, you
Yeah,
can
I'm-
leave it out. You can't spot zone.
No.
You could
no,
leave it out.
but just leave it.
You could leave it
Just
out.
leave it out, yeah, just
You
leave it
could
as
leave it out.
it is. Just leave it as it is, yeah.
So is
Yeah.
that something the board will consider to do that?
Well, it's out of the district now, and it's just like any other property in Easton. It could be rezoned one way or the other, depending on the legality of it. I mean, it's really just it's a regular piece of land, right? I mean,
Well, so,
Yeah.
I don't know if you were
Well,
here.
so
la-
the current zoning,
Yeah.
and it sounds like, maybe I'm misreading what you're saying, is that you'd like to see more than the 12 or 16
No.
properties?
Personally, I'm going to recommend we take it out. You know, based on last week, I don't know if you were at last week's meeting, but you know, I kind of put it out there. I said, let's, when I drew the map, I popped it in there. I said, let's see, you know, there's a great opportunity. On one hand, I think there's a great opportunity to create a nice pocket neighborhood, but have to be respectful of those. I'm a little further up the street. I'm at 201 Pequonicket, you know, so, and after I've spoken with several folks from the neighborhood, and again, we're not looking to force anything, so you know, I still, you know, as I told Dale, either yesterday or today on the phone, I said, you know, I think the best tool to develop that under current zoning, right, would be, I think it would be a shame to do it as a conventional subdivision, because you can go in, I know the ad says 12 lots, so I never looked at the land, who knows, let's just say 12 lots, okay. They go in, but every square inch of that plot would be, you know, developed. You know, once you take water table into account, you start putting in septic systems, it might be nice to look at doing a flexible development, or a compact neighborhood, not like what was across the street, a different version, but which would allow smaller lots. In return, if a developer has to build a little less road, you know, if we make the lots a little smaller and give it a little thought, lay it out like an old neighborhood, more of the land can be left as green space, as open space, can be preserved. Where that would be, I don't know. We need to walk that land and see where it makes sense. That's why I brought the example of Weber Farms, you know, how we did that. I was in a meeting today and someone said, they cut all those trees down for the septic system. I said, no, they did not. I said, Weber Farms had 2 old abandoned houses in the front. In the back was wonderfully manicured wood. Someone took care of those woods like their baby for a long time in the snow. And they all survived. I mean, a couple trees had to come down for the houses, but we did a group septic system out front. That way, the land, if we'd done conventional, every tree would have come down in that place. And there's a community garden that can be leased out if the homeowners don't want to do it. And there's even going to be a really nice barn with a bus stop, a little shelter for the bus stop. So we try to create, and we got architectural approval of that, for the neighborhood. And we're able to get the developers to realize, no, in fairness to them, they kind of realize smaller homes, that's what folks want. And the average house in there is 1,800 to 2,200 square feet. So by doing that, there's even more land that can be saved. We don't have to go in and clear cut everything. I like trees, especially, that's a beautiful piece up there.
Right, but so the only concern is that if you're going to zone it as you would the properties that you're speculating on 106, where it might be a donut shop, or it might be, that's not something that I think the group would really like to see happen in there. So I just don't know how you're able to say, okay to the ones on 106, but if it's in the zoning, you can't do that on the 16
Well,
acres.
you couldn't if it was in the zone. But
Right, the point is that the boundaries of where these districts and sub-districts are very much in play. And I tend to be of the opinion that Greg just shared with you, that maybe this property shouldn't be a part of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be
Just
too much of a
based
distraction
on-
just to begin with, right?
Yeah, but it is absolutely in play, to answer your question.
you guys really are, you're seeing the director's cut. I mean,
this is it.
We normally, we have conversations like this, in a much smaller setting. So maybe we seem a little disjointed, jumping all, but I think this is good. It's sort of like brainstorming. But personally, I can't speak for these guys, but personally, after hearing the reactions, I'm looking, okay, I'm like, let's take that out, because that is not, especially on the heel that it just went on the market, that is not, I kind of threw it and said, let's see if there's a flavor for a little dense neighborhood there. And clearly there isn't. So pull it up, but that's what you do as a planner. You have to throw these things out and to gauge opinion. In some places we've done things like that's great, we'd love to do that, but everything's a little different. And I told Dale the other day, I mean, like I said, I've lived on Pequannock for 31 years. I love that neighborhood. And you guys, that's one of the nicest, that's a great neighborhood. The old stone walls there, the houses that have stayed intact, the quaintness of it. It's a gem, especially where it is so close to, a major thoroughfare by our standards anyways, And just think when you have sidewalks and you can walk uptown and you go by your friends' newly placed 10,000 square foot lots with historically wonderful homes.
Can I just ask, it's 8:15?
You're gonna go get coffee?
No,
No.
I just would like to, if we're not gonna, if we've asked, if people have given us most of their feedback, if we can either get back onto some topics tonight, to address, I mean, can we
Are
get
we
on?
off topic?
No, I'm just asking how much, I'm just asking that we haven't heard Judy yet on the residential districts. And I don't know how much longer you want to talk about residential districts before you get to the 2 other anchor districts.
Can I try
I
and
just
sum
didn't know
up?
how long you wanted to have, I'm just
Residential?
asking time management, asking,
What's the goal for?
are we trying to get to both, are we trying to get to all 3 sub-districts
And
tonight?
I can tell you what I think the goal is. You want to know what I think?
Yeah.
I need input from the board
Yep.
on the draft 4. So you need to tell me, what are you okay with, what do you want to change, and then what needs to stay in or out of the map?
Yeah.
That's what I need to know, so that I can turn this around for you by, if you've got a meeting coming up on the 13th or something, I would like to get this done for you, but I need that direction from the board.
I mean, to me, and you guys tell me what you think, but I mean, to me, it's the density and it's the boundaries.
Right.
In the usage, in the residential.
Well,
Because the people that live in the residential, just for lack of a better example, don't want to see some place with a dumpster in their backyard, clanging trash.
I say we keep the residential, but we do have to deal with, there are a couple existing commercial properties
Exactly.
out there. We're gonna have to deal with
Yeah,
that.
and that was the only That was the only reason for that change in the first place, was there,
That makes
to
sense,
account
yeah.
for the existing
Homeowners in the
What-
room.
commercial.
What you might want to do, just as a suggestion, to preserve this as a contiguous district, would be what we're calling
I think so, yeah.
residential transition, to essentially make the rules for that what the existing residential district rules are, with perhaps some slight differences in, don't everybody yell, but just, for example, if the board decided that you wanted to keep some light commercial use in there, like the professional office or something, then that might be different from the existing residential rules. But the other thing that you could do is keep the existing residential density rules in place, but have an alternative for, say, cottage development, where you might say, okay, so normally you can't do anything in this district unless you have 40,000 square feet, whatever. But if you're doing a cottage development, you could do 10,000 square foot lots.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just like a whole nother road. We have to start looking at things. I mean, they're not existing non-conforming. I mean, it is, so it's, and they're there already. So if we could leave that alone right now, and they'd be what they are today. I mean, after
Well,
this
but I
bylaw.
think what she's almost suggesting, which is, I think, appealing, is some sort of a modified grandfather clause for these
Yeah.
existing commercial uses, where you might be able to get, I mean, I'm not talking about a major,
Right.
commercial development here, but something that would be like an amenity to the folks in this neighborhood.
Yeah.
Something
I mean,
small.
take out an ice cream shop if you want, but
Right.
I mean, professional office, to a certain scale, isn't really a whole lot different from a home occupation. I mean, it's
Frankly,
just,
I thought that one of the reasons we did this here was because there was already some existing business.
that's what I thought too,
That's what
so,
I thought.
Oh, it did, there's the used car dealer, and then there's,
So they're existing non-conforming.
Arlene's
yeah,
building.
right.
No,
So
no,
we-
no, it's actually a business district.
Oh, yes.
What we
Yeah.
were thinking it was residential, but it actually is zoned as business, and so,
We can just leave it alone right now and just not even touch those. Leave them, if they're own business, they can
Yeah.
stay business,
Yeah.
I mean.
So just speak to that, because
Yeah.
I think to clarify,
Yeah.
you already, Dale Carrister, you already have an existing district,
Right.
so where Arlene's property is zone business.
That's what I thought.
Is the
that's what I
Blues-
just
the Blues-
said.
Right, no, but the prior discussion didn't recognize that, so when you're talking about existing commercial properties, they're not in the residential district.
Okay.
So from our point of view, the residential district, and we're not trying to do away with any of the existing accessory uses, so professional, offices and things like that.
Zoning, right, yeah.
Right, okay, so I just wanted to clarify.
Could you describe what cottage development means?
small homes up to 2,000 square feet,
let's call them village homes.
village homes, I mean, whatever, I
Yeah,
mean, the
just
point
better.
is,
Cottage has a different connotation to it,
well,
and
and
it
it
throws
might.
everybody off, well, just because it ties to some other projects in town.
Okay.
But we're, right, smaller homes.
So,
Now, are
village
you
housing,
talking-
it could be a single home, but it's a smaller dwelling, and typically,
Are you
It
talking where just the residential
The
properties are
residential.
on 106?
Yes.
yeah,
Can I just, the thought of converting, and I know it's a common thing to do, is to convert a single-family residence to a small professional, a dentist, or a small professional engineer or something. Having been in the real estate industry for 40 years, that requires a lot of work. You have a pretty little residential house, but in order to put an engineering office or a dentist office, you have to put 11 lots out front. So there goes your front yard. So you lose that residential look the minute you do something like that.
You
The
speaking of
It
parking?
becomes commercial,
Oh.
and you lose that aesthetic, single-family residence when you do that.
And that's why the existing zoning.
boy, I've seen.
allows
Even though
conversions
it's allowed.
I've seen conversions that didn't do that, so I'm not sure what your regulations say right now, but I've seen professional office conversions where the parking is entirely behind and next to the building and not in the front yard.
I suppose that depends on where the house is located,
Right,
on the
right.
lot, and whether they
Right.
can actually do that.
Yep.
But
Oh, sure.
I think you're converting that residential area to a bunch of little commercial lots. You got the dentist and the hairdresser who's allowed to go in there, and the engineer, and and you've got these parking lots out front.
So your cottage development, village development, 2,000 square foot lots, that's kind of similar to the
2,000
compact
square foot
neighborhood?
buildings, she said.
2,000 square foot buildings is kind of similar to the compact neighborhood, which is presently, what,
Yeah,
18,
yeah,
17,
sure.
18?
I think,
Can I just, I have not studied your compact neighborhood district, so I'm not gonna comment on that at all. But when I think about village development, typically it's more than just lot area. You also have to think about the width of the lot, because one of the things that tends to be very disturbing to people who live in an area where there are kind of, smaller or older homes, is when a new house comes in and it builds out to the side yard setback. So all of a sudden you have a structure that in form is very different from what's there. So the key is not just the lot area, it's the frontage. And so the narrower you allow the lots to be, the more you can control the width of the building. So you get something that looks almost more like a farmhouse style structure, where if it's a two-family, actually the second unit is toward the back of the building, and you don't have this big front with a garage door that sticks out. And I mean, so you have to think about all the dimensional rules and not just the lot area. It's more than density, it really is.
Well, and we're
So-
talking about such a small number of properties, you can
Right.
almost, I mean, I
Just a
think,
thought.
sounds to me, I mean, I think, why don't we eliminate, we already have accessory uses in there, so.
Yeah.
That take, that take care of the small, because there's certainly no shortage of space, east and west of this residential district. But why not, I just would hate to see us throw out, why not, I don't know what the magic number is, but why not still allow potential for more density in this residential area with a slant towards historical? Because otherwise, if we just do nothing, then I just think it's a wasted opportunity for you folks.
1 unit per 20,000, just like, you could fix up a building, keep it architectural, and add an apartment above, or make it.
Well, I think you could, look, you could do some very creative, I can think of one property out there would be fantastic with 2 or 3 narrow houses and the parking's on the back on it.
Well, you would still keep that, historic house conversion.
Oh, yeah, we have to work, I think, on the ratio, but yeah, I mean, like, after, when this is done, I fully
really
intend on,
interesting.
hope I can I wrote the expansion of the local historic district 4 or 5 years ago. I think we should put a local historic district here, because that's the only way you're gonna preserve stuff. And it would open you up to grants, it would increase property value, and it would protect what you want, and it would create new things because there's a fantastic historic flavor there already. Some of it needs to come back, some of it's kind of disappeared, but a lot of it's remained. And I think when you drive down, if you're coming down 123 and you're at that set of lights and oh yeah, Target, this same old, right? Then you bang a right, and then all of a sudden, oh, there's that neat little Keystone masonry house on the pond. Then there's a pond, then there's another pond. And wow, look at these nice, architecturally pleasing, look like 1,700 square foot houses with 2 bedrooms. And I bet you there's some green space access out there. And then, then you see Arlene's great brick building, and then I know the gentleman, I met with the gentleman who owns the car dealership that day, and he had some ideas. And then boom, then there's, we'll call it the South Street block. And there's things that have been restored, and there's new units added that have texture and depth, and there's a vitality there. And you're like, wow, this is not Route 1 in Attleboro. All due respect to Attleboro, and
Be nice.
any town, but you know what I'm saying. And it's not a visual
Different
cacophony
community.
of every neon sign in America, or even not even neon, be just a light box. But and then you see more more vitality down at Five Corners as with opportunity comes investment, and it's what we're trying to create. That's the economic factor here. It comes from added investment, first by the property owners, and then follows by the state with the sidewalks, which the work would have been put in. It'll happen. This town will make sure it happens. I won't. There's your motivation to get rid of me. I won't resign till we get it done. Damn, better be careful, man. Have it in 2 years.
So what kind of density bonus are you considering?
Density bonus. I think 10,000 square foot lots. I think that way. Because if go home tonight, right? Or
10,000 where?
Town is a model.
in the residential area. Look at, and that based on, I've read a lot of zoning maps in Easton because I have absolutely no life. And so if you go downtown here, Main Street all the way to Jenny Lynn that way, you come down Pond Street, those lots are 2, 5, 7,000 square feet. And then constantly, we heard it here tonight, and it's true. I love those old neighborhoods. And it was not bad when it was closeness. There was closeness with thought. There was human scale. When we rewrote the height bylaw a few years ago, it wasn't to keep, it was to bring in human scale to the buildings, because every time a house gets built in Easton, it's got to go up high because of the water table. So people were still taking these, no thought. They're just taking these giant houses and lifting them 20 feet above the existing grade and blocking out all the light from the people in the neighborhoods. And with a little thought, at first they fought us, but then with a little thought they realized, they're right. We can do it this way.
I personally would like all this to happen, Fred. I am very excited about the opportunities here. And what I'm sort of suggesting is...
You need a mic.
I'm personally excited about the opportunities here for what we can do. And what I'm trying to suggest is, would you come to the table, like whether it's on the 13th or otherwise, with this is what we're talking about, and to allay people's worst fears about what might happen next to them. So by way of example, there was a young couple who just moved from Jamaica Plain. They bought a historic house on the structure, on the corner. There's a lot next to them. They are concerned that it's going to be filled with apartments.
Oh my
Okay?
gosh,
They just,
yeah.
no, I understand, but you've got to understand where people are coming from.
I
They
do.
don't know this stuff like you guys do.
Sure.
And so if you can come in the meeting on the 13th and say, this is what we're talking about, this is the vision, and these are how the proposed zoning regulations would permit that to happen, so people see the upside opportunity and not like some fear being realized. I think
fair.
it'll go a
That's
long
fair.
way.
Trash transfer station, just to scare them for a minute.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, people do have a right to know what's going to happen next to them. That's part of my dislike for the special
I mean,
permit.
really,
is
I mean,
that-
a 4-unit
For you.
building, on an acre, that's a pretty good size. I mean, that might not be what you expect when you move to when you buy a house in that area. I mean, so that is a big change, and that's what we have to talk about, some numbers here. I mean,
So, yeah,
I feel the
you
same
were
way. If
saying...
I lived there, I'd feel the same thing about.
And timing-wise...
This over here, and then a 4-building
So
apartment.
some of these folks, because they weren't there on Saturday when it was knocking on doors, the first time they found out about it was on Sunday, yesterday. So they're trying to absorb this, and there is a concern, as we're rushing towards these dates. So, I understand why you want to do it, and it makes sense to get things in place at this annual town meeting and everything, but we're trying to help our folks absorb things, and so that, because we're challenged with something, we get our fist up against, like this, rather than if we have a little time to absorb it and working hand in hand. But we've got the benefit that this group saw the benefits of working closely with the town. It was on the DIF, it was on the MassWorks grant, and it was the recalculation of the formulas for the condo owners. They've already had a very, very positive experience, and inviting our group to get involved in this and coming on the 13th goes a long way to help that as
Yeah,
well.
so your point
We
is,
appreciate
so
that.
if I have a property next to me, is that going to be a bakery with 4 apartments, or is it going to be?
Yes.
Maybe a small business with.
sell the vision
with
and-
2 apartments, right? I mean, that's a big difference.
If you
We
sell the
actually need to
vision
write
and,
it.
and how that's tied to your regulations, what it permits, and why the regulations don't permit these worst fears to come true, I think it goes a long way towards getting up and over the hurdle.
And I want to go back on something you said earlier, just so people understand. This isn't being rushed through. We've been talking about this for a long time. And as you remember, there was a visioning session with you folks, over a year ago. And it might seem a little different, because, we went through a transition where Stephanie Jansen, our former planning director, resigned effective at the end of the year. So it's just smack in the middle of it, and right with the holidays. But anytime, every year when we've been doing zoning amendments, I think every year, probably the last 10 years. And because of, even though the town meeting isn't until May 18th, statutorily, there's these certain things. So, but this isn't rushed, this isn't helter-skelter. We've taken a bit of a different path this year, because we have folks in much earlier, but that's fine. But it's just a little different for us, so maybe we seem a little, but this is getting, when we get right down to the nitty-gritty, we've been thinking about this for a long time, and hopefully we can convince you guys why we think it makes sense to do. And like anything, the devil's in the details, and by that, the densities, and we're tweaking that up. But look, we've already worked through a lot of stuff. But I would implore you not to be afraid of change to a degree, because we're looking to let you folks all benefit from your property, and the town will too. I'm not being, I guess I'm being selfish. I mean, I would like to see, I want to see our 2 main corridors vastly improved.
Yeah.
And they both have unique opportunities, but yours has this fantastic opportunity in the middle, because it's this gem of a neighborhood. And the only way to improve that, you can say, oh, keep it as is, but, yeah, but that doesn't seem to be working at every property. But maybe by adding some stimulus with some well-thought-out additional small homes, I think it can be a home run.
Our folks, I think, understand that if we do nothing, we're taking steps backwards.
Yeah.
And I think folks will be very positive about it. We're putting out a positive message about the opportunities here. So I just want to make sure that when you hear me raising concerns and everything, it's in the context of being very excited about what we can work and trying to put out a positive message to the folks in our district. And I'm trying to also make sure that views that have been expressed to me from folks who can't be here tonight are being passed along.
Yeah, I just wanted to stress that we're on a good working timeline here.
I just want to mention that a lot of the lots in the district are in that like 10 to 12,000, 15,000 square foot range. I think the number that you've come up with speaks to a lot of existing properties already, so it wouldn't be like a huge change for a majority of the district. I think you've got a lot of prior non-conforming uses in there.
I think that was the hope.
Yeah.
I think it goes with the character of what's there already, as opposed to changing the character of what's there.
Right.
There are a few lots that are larger in size, but majority of them are smaller lots that were in long before the zoning was in place.
Judy, it seems like common sense, but sometimes with these, say, 1 unit per 10,000 square feet, you have to spell it out that you round down. Just
Yeah,
sometimes
Yeah.
when it's worth an extra
Yeah.
unit for them. Right?
True, yep,
They have some funny math.
yeah.
Well,
But
and
you don't
also-
get 1 unit if it's 9,500. I mean,
Yeah, right,
it's
yeah.
got to have 10,000. That's why it's a minimum, yeah.
And I think it's understood also from the rest of your zoning that it's 10,000 square feet of upland. It's not just lot area.
Yep, that's a good one.
So, are you ready for what the board is looking for the standard density and then the bonus density if you convert a historic house?
Is that a number you
Is
want?
density the issue, or is it form? I'm going to continue to ask this question because they're not the same thing.
Well, you listed it here as density, so how do you mean
I understand
it?
that, but I'm just saying that their density fits into a whole form picture. It's not just,
Yeah.
I worry when towns just pull density off and
You
say,
can control it one way or the other, right? Yeah.
yeah, it's the
So
whole
when-
picture.
Why don't you explain, when you have, how does the form work with this, the way you have this written?
It's all about the setbacks, it's about the size of the structure, the height of the structure,
So did you change setbacks here?
maximum, build out the frontage occupancy. It's a whole building form.
I don't see that in the residential subdivision, so could you explain it to
Residential
me?
district is different.
I know, so we're talking residential sub-district?
Right. The dwelling unit per 10,000 square feet was an attempt to mimic what that the lot areas are out there now. That was the last conversation we had when I was here.
Right.
Was that there are a lot of smaller lots out there, and we'd like to get some people out of a non-conforming state, because otherwise they're a 40,000 square foot district. So I just said, fine, what about 10,000? It could be 15, it could be 20, it could be 8. I need you to tell me what you want. I
But-
said 10.
Did you, and that was not changing to get to your issue to form, how do you,
Stop. All I'm saying about the residential district is that the maximum density is 1 dwelling unit per 10,000 square feet, except in the situation where someone has an existing structure that is deemed historically important, and that the board can grant some additional density in order to preserve that building, but allow some intensification of use within the building. Okay, I'm not dealing with a lot of other form rules in the residential transition district. What I heard was you didn't want to encourage a whole lot of change there. So I just said, here's the minimum lot, and you had said you wanted 35, what I was told was that you wanted the maximum height of 35 feet and 2.5 stories, which I was told is the standard in your existing residential district, except I need to point out you should all look at your Appendix B, because it's not what it says. But nonetheless, that's what I was told, so that's what I put in here. If there's, anything else can be dealt with in Appendix B. It's 100 feet frontage. The setbacks are what they are, but You know, in here, I just said, here's the stories, here's the density, and the density is based on what I thought I heard you saying about the existing lots in that area. So if you want a different standard, tell me what you want.
So 10,000 square feet, that's. At 10,000 square feet as a working unit, that's a little bit airier than what you have at the Jenny Lind neighborhood.
Correct.
Just to give people
Yeah,
some.
Jenny Lynn's about
some-
5,000, I think, if memory
Right,
serves.
right, just to give people some
Okay.
understanding. Yeah.
So the reason this is not defined as a lot, it's really about dwelling units per land unit, is that we're trying to arrive at a standard here that also works for the situation where someone has an existing historically important building and you want to allow some intensification within the structure.
Yeah.
At that point, you're not regulating lot area, you're just regulating how much land area per unit do you need.
Okay.
That's typically the way this would
Do
be
we have
done.
the frontage, I mean, no, sorry, the front setback at 50?
I kept all that stuff the
Okay,
way
yeah.
it is right now.
Yeah. That's gonna push the houses way back from the street, right? Whereas
Yeah, which I actually don't like,
different
but
than
I
the
mean, that's.
existing, what we're talking about,
I
how
know.
houses being on the street.
I know, I would change all those, but I was getting I think maybe I was getting mixed read. I'm not sure, but I was hearing not a whole lot of change, so I was trying not to do a whole lot of change.
And even on the quarter acre lots that we have, you know, down near the little peach, et cetera, I mean, the houses, most of the houses aren't 50 feet back because.
No, I would bring that forward.
Yeah, I mean, they wouldn't even fit on the lot.
I would bring it forward. that's my opinion, but, if you actually want it to look more like a neighborhood, like a Main
Of
Street
course, you're gonna come
neighborhood,
on top of
50
the
feet is
street.
dumb.
Yeah, I mean, it's like-
It should be
yeah.
probably 25 or 30
Yeah, they
feet.
have the small yard, 20 to 30, right, yeah.
Right, but I need direction from you, because
Yep.
that's,
That's what I'm talking about, yeah. I'm
Very
not
good.
being critical, I'm just talking
I
about.
would say 25 or 30
on a
feet
10,000
front.
square foot lot, a 50-foot front yard is not gonna work.
It's stupid.
Yeah.
I would just say 25 or 30 feet.
Yeah, and so I don't worry about those numbers just yet. That's easy lifting. We can change those at the last minute, that's a piece of cake.
Right,
And
but I
and
need to
really
know what you
I
want.
need personally to do, for myself, I need to go and just look on a lot by lot basis and say,
Yeah.
okay, what will go here? Because it just, but
I-
I think of it, I know you're saying form, but I do, just in my head, I think of it as a little bit of a density on a lot basis, just so I can say, so what this woman just said, okay, that's like Jenny Lind.
If you look at Google Maps, if you just open up Google Maps and go to an ortho view,
Right.
you can kind of get a sense of what the actual setbacks
Oh,
are
with
out
property
there.
view, you can actually use a little measurement tool.
Yeah, you can do that, right. It's just, you get a real sense pretty quickly.
Yeah, you
and
can figure it out, right, yeah.
I'm telling you, 25 or 30 feet would work.
Yeah.
So what are we expecting to get accomplished today?
Right, yeah, that's just, yeah, that's,
Let's
Direction to
just
Judy.
Work it. Let's
So,
work this document.
Well, but see, I just want to say, I mean, we're all different. I think this is a very positive,
It is.
productive session.
This is great.
Okay, we can all
I
sit
love
around
this.
and talk about form and numbers, but it doesn't mean anything. We need the personal connection. So I worry when we just try to snip stuff off. These are residents, taxpayers of this town who have come out of the town. I like listening to it. This is why you're here. We're working together. So I think we're getting some great information. And
I don't disagree. I'm actually loving it, so, but I also have to kind of juggle between, I could listen to this all night, but then also I'm gonna get some numbers on paper, so I'm not trying to cut you off, Greg, I just want to get direction from the
But
board.
what's the process? Should we hold off until the February 13th meeting on kind of ironing out more of these particulars?
no, because, well, it's only a week away, but we should, we should come up with any ideas tonight. And then everybody's welcome to just let me know if you're going to come to the 13th meeting, then we have to post it as a public hearing. I was asked to just go and
Public
talk,
meeting.
so I was going to do that.
Public meeting,
If this
right?
is suddenly going to become
No,
a big,
it's-
a different.
Public hearing is in March, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, but open
Different.
public meeting law.
Right.
This board cannot go out, other than 2 members, without posting it. That's
I
what I'm
know
talking
that.
about.
I know that.
So maybe tonight as a board, you can talk about what it is you'd like to change, and then he'd have more to offer on the 13th.
Well, another possibility is, don't change anything yet. Go
Exactly.
out and say to the neighborhood, well, this is what the
That's
draft
what I'm
says
getting
right
at.
now, but we're thinking about this.
yeah, well,
In my head, what I want to push, I don't mean, but
Yeah.
let's just talk residential right now, because I think the commercial stuff's it's a lot easier. We have to look at some densities there, but why are you shaking your head?
I just wanted to ask questions about
Yeah.
You could, you will, so, the residential, so I think we're in kind of agreement, we're probably nipping off that back piece, right?
yeah,
Boundaries.
I agree with that, yeah.
And we're probably gonna keep the, commercial, just the accessory uses. And we're gonna look for 10,000 square foot you know, or some version, maybe it's a form version, but we're going to increase the density.
So from the input I thought I heard was that they were concerned that maybe it was a little, becoming a little too much change for that neighborhood. I don't know if that's, that.
But we eliminated a lot of what was a, you know, so we're really looking at one change, increasing density.
Yeah.
That's one change.
The density accepts what's there. It brings all these people that are non-conforming, that
Right.
are already in existence,
That's what we're trying to do.
Right.
Oh, that's
a
fine, right, yeah.
legal lot.
And it provides
Makes-
creative
makes it good for
opportunities
everybody
for
that's
the
there.
larger lots.
It's really just the, it's really just the architectural bonus and.
It's a good
plus,
thing.
yeah.
You're basically taking people who are not in compliance and making them in compliance.
That's what we're
Right.
trying to do.
And why do we like Main Street and Jenny Lynn? Because they're walkable neighborhoods, because there's a human scale. People like, it's proven, people like to walk when the buildings, you know, are 2 feet apart, not 402 feet apart. And so to create investment in this, the only way you're going to do that is create additional units.
So just to clarify, mixed use in the residential is off the table?
I think it is, yeah.
Right.
I didn't see it in here.
I didn't hear what you just said.
Get that, yeah, okay, so we got that.
What did you say?
that's-
I just didn't want to make, what did you say?
Mixed, any
Mixed use is off the table in this, in the teeny tiny residential
is
unit.
off the table. I mean, we still have the underlying zoning bylaw, which allows some sort of home occupation uses, et cetera.
Doesn't
You want
have
to
to be
keep
off the
that,
table.
right?
Yeah.
But you don't even want like professional office use?
Well, but that's in our accessory uses. That's, I said we're
I'm
going to.
talking about, no, I'm talking about as a principal use. And just tell me, it's fine. I'm not, my feelings aren't hurt, I just want to know.
I just said.
I say no. I don't think it's worth it at this point.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's that much of an opportunity for it anyways. This,
Yeah.
we're literally talking 6
What do you,
properties.
okay, what do you guys think? I just want the board to, the board,
I agree, we should keep it accessory uses only.
okay.
That's fine. I'll,
Yeah, I mean, that's what, the reason I asked was because I was trying to just really clarify that. I heard that the only change we're making now is to the density, so I just wanted to make sure that that is what we are actually.
Do we still have that chart
about.
that you had that showed the properties?
Just, I prefaced that by
Yes.
saying my thought.
No, I know, okay,
We're
yeah,
a board.
okay,
I
that's
don't,
sure.
you know,
Yeah.
I may
I wasn't
express
sure.
my opinions often, but I'm not forcing
I
anything
thought
on
that's where we were
anybody's
going
thought.
to, but I just wanted to actually, right, yeah.
So,
Changing only accessory uses.
Well, well, we're just leaving, no,
the
we're
other
leaving
ones
the
will still
uses
be-
as is, basically.
Okay.
Right, I mean, just underlying zoning.
so Mr. Heichel, thank you for your patience. Such a saint. What would you like to bless us with?
Thanks, Neil. No, I'm just trying to understand the table where it talks about maximum residential density under the people and it says 1 DU per 2,500 square feet.
Page 3.
Yep,
Is that the Eastman sub-district?
Depots.
Yeah, that's a different, those are the anchors on the corners.
He wants to ask questions about
Oh, I just have-
Go for it.
so what's your question?
I just wanted to clarify, when you mentioned 10,000 square feet
Yep,
Okay.
in the district, in the depot district, what is the 1 DU 2,500 square feet represent?
it's one dwelling, so if you have a mixed-use building, the number of dwelling units that can go in the structure would be based on a ratio of 1 to 10,000 square feet of lot area. So if you had a 1 acre lot or something, and you had a mixed-use building, you've got 1 unit per 10,000 square feet, or 4 lots, 4 dwelling units,
Like
excuse me.
16 units.
Can I
Right.
ask you, so just to that point, so in the previous version, we had 5,000.
Right.
Did that
I-
go down from a meeting?
I thought I was told to reduce it, but I would not reduce it. I
I
would
don't
keep
remember
it.
hearing that.
Yeah.
But-
I think it should stay at 5 where we had it.
I agree.
Yeah.
See, the thing is,
Are you in Depot Street?
Right, that's why I was confused.
Depot, can I talk?
Yes,
Please.
please.
Okay, thank you. What I heard was that you wanted to allow for perhaps more development incentive on the Eastman side than the Depot side. It was my first draft of this, I confused the two, but, so if that's what your goal is, then I would say keep the Depot sub-district at something like 1 dwelling unit per 5,000 square feet, which gets you roughly 8 units an acre. But on the Eastman side, if what you're trying to do is incentivize investment, I would drop it. And so my current draft, which I'll change if you want me to, but my current draft is more like 1 dwelling unit per 2,500 square feet. That gets you more like 18 units an acre. And the issue is simply, how much are you trying to incentivize investment? That's what the whole thing is about. So you have to tell me, is that too much incentive? Or is that about what you kind of want to see? Because it's the housing that's, I hate to say this, it's the housing that's going to drive the
Right.
redevelopment.
I mean,
It's
for
the
my-
housing that's going to
yeah.
do it.
The way I look at that is, even if, say, forget about what I think as a person, as a resident, or even what I think of anything else, but, I mean, the town might have just a little bit of fatigue with all these housing units being built, and that's, I mean, that's a big number that we have to be careful about, as mentioned, how people feel about additional housing.
And I don't blame them, and I understand that completely. What I'm trying to say to you as a board is,
You can make a million
if you want
arguments.
to encourage development, then you just got to know, whether you like it or not, it's the housing that's probably going to lead that effort. So make it something that's worthwhile to a
Don't
proponent.
forget what 5 years ago, one of the biggest things we took out of the master plan was the need for diversified housing. So there are many different forms of dwelling units.
Oh, yeah.
So I understand this fatigue for large-scale
No, I
apartments
know,
in town.
you have different ideas too, right, yeah, okay.
That doesn't mean, and, I look at this, and for where we are right now, the depot, I think the 1 for 8, again, keeping in mind the number of properties we're talking about, we're not talking about a lot, again, there's lots of properties that don't have that.
Well, you also trip a special permit with the number. I mean, there's a whole thing here. So there's
can
a
you explain
density, there's a density standard.
Right.
But then there's also you hit a certain number of units, and now it's no longer by right, now it's a special permit. And so in the notes to the table, it's the maximum number you get will be 10 units in the depot subdistrict, or 20 in Eastman without a special permit. That's a really low number. From a multifamily perspective, you represent developers, that's a really low number. So essentially what this is doing is saying you're going to end up in a special permit process to do multifamily or to do upper story residential. And, do I like that? No, but I think that's what I was hearing from you.
But at the same time, to Peter's point, because we do have to be, there is fatigue with this. We do need to be careful that we don't go too much in one direction with a certain type of housing. And we've done this before. We've had these triggers, not like the old multifamily, which you couldn't do anything. But there's nothing that can. Let's say someone comes, and this happens plenty of times in lots of communities. Someone comes along with a project that is a different density than this, a higher density that is by right. But that's a good product. I think that makes sense, and the community gets on board. We can amend this. I mean, there's. What we're trying to do, I don't mind that we have a little bit of a governor on there to make sure we get a decent product, because there is, we do need to protect our community to make sure we get quality stuff. And again, because we have the benefit of doing that because we're talking small parcels. We're not talking giant, for the most part, we're talking small parcels. And we're not going to be looking at big players. We're going to be looking at property owners and local developers.
So Judy, where are your as of right densities? If these are maximum residential density by special permit, where are your?
No, this is number of units. Don't confuse the two.
yeah.
One is number of units per
Okay, whatever.
land area, and the other is scale.
Well, I'm not confusing it, because they're all gonna come out with an end result with a certain amount
Right,
of
so
units.
if I did
Not really.
10 units in the depot subdistrict at one dwelling unit per 5,000 square feet, I can do that as of right, subject to site plan review.
Right, yeah.
If I want to go 11, now I got to get a special permit.
Oh, I see.
So the density doesn't
that's the
change, it's the
two-stars, right?
number, yeah, it's the scale.
So in other words, there's actually no cap on the maximum.
For the number of units, no, it just becomes a special permit.
So yeah, right, it'd just be like, yeah, go
You
ahead.
don't want to put it, no, that actually ends up creating the potential for some really strangely configured units.
No, I bet, right, yeah.
So did I hear you say that depot would be, you would change to one dwelling unit to
By right.
5,000 square feet?
Let's talk about that, just for maybe everyone.
One
can-
dwelling unit, let me just maybe explain this. One dwelling unit per 5,000 square feet, up to 10 units. If I want to do more than 10 units, I'm still talking about one dwelling unit per 5,000 square feet, but now I have to get discretionary approval from this board. That's the difference. So it's not a change in the density, it's a change, it's what the number of units triggers as to the type of permitting process.
In that district.
In that particular district, yes, exactly.
And by on a lot, you mean any area lot that's obviously within whatever.
This is not about a lot area, this is how much land area per unit you have to have.
Right.
So if I have a 1 acre lot, the lot area is going to be determined by Appendix B.
No, on your two asterisks, it says the maximum number of upper story or multifamily units on a lot.
That's correct.
So that's any, so it could be the smallest size lot, or it could be a double size lot.
correct, right.
Okay.
3 acre
So-
lot,
If
Yeah.
you go above the 10 units, you
Right.
have to get a special
Yeah.
permit.
Exactly.
But I just wanted to clarify that lot means lot.
So in,
That's in its
Yeah.
current form.
scale is the
But for
trigger.
the record, I'm gonna fight to make everything special permit.
So don't listen to him. Don't
I
listen
think
to
that's
him.
better for the residents.
So I just want to point out that this bylaw, as it's drafted, allows this board to adopt a guidance document that sort of interprets and applies the zoning to clarify what the expectations are. And if they do that, then, you know,
Been
it
there, done
becomes
that.
much
Doesn't work.
easier
We
for,
only have 2 more meetings. There's this meeting, and then there's a meeting on the 18th, and then there's a meeting on
And
the
it
3rd.
takes 6 seconds to
Yeah.
edit that sentence.
Yeah, but the whole board has to agree.
Really? I didn't know that.
No, but
thank
what
you.
I'm saying is, I'm just saying,
I'm
just saying, don't put it off. If that's the conversation you want to have, just have it.
Oh, we've had it every week,
right.
and we'll continue to have
I
it.
think there's a healthy I wouldn't even call it a disagreement. I think it's different perspectives on this board,
Yeah,
which is nice, frankly, from
Yeah,
a consultant's
you-
point of
you
view.
want that.
I mean, my concern, and I kind of spoke to it earlier, is that we're going to make a lot of these changes, particularly in that Depot Street area, and that we're selling ourselves a little bit short there by, you know, just assuming that we're only going to get the same investment that this town has always seen.
Right, I
We're only
agree.
going to get the same local developers that this town has always seen. But that's not how some of these skilled developers actually work. And that's not how, there are many of them in and around Easton that don't come into Easton because of the zoning
Right.
issues, that probably would and do creative developments down in that area if they had an opportunity to make money. And I think my concern here is that, look, obviously I want to get something passed. So something is better than nothing from my perspective,
Yep.
because the zoning in that area is so antiquated. I think something is better than nothing. But I'm also concerned that it's not going to be as great as it could be
Yeah.
if we don't allow for a little bit of creativity and a little bit of scale.
So give some examples of a non.
You can write on it.
I mean, a
fresh
perfect example would be, I don't think you're going to get any real significant developer to come in and redo a commercial building right in that intersection if they're only able to put in 8 units above a restaurant.
Right.
It's
It
not
doesn't
gonna
work.
happen.
It doesn't work.
That's not gonna work. It's just the finances and the economics
That's right.
aren't there.
He's right.
So the concept is, it's a nice one, because I hear what you're saying, and I have the same thoughts, which is that too much multifamily is gonna be such a burden. Traffic's already bad. I mean, I commute into Boston every day, so believe me, I know about traffic. But I am also concerned that this isn't gonna work the way that we all really want it to work, and I think it could work. And we can make these changes, and it might not work anyway.
Right.
But I would like to give ourselves the best opportunity to see something really great happen in that area.
Yeah.
And I'm just concerned that,
Such as?
well, I would think that, you know, increasing the density in that area is the most logical thing to promote investment.
So,
I really do.
if I'm understanding you correctly, you don't think this goes far enough in the Depot Street area?
I don't.
To get like a walkable kind of shops and condo apartment type thing that the developer would actually, someone come in like a hanging shipyard type, not saying something that scale, but you know, something along those lines. and
Yeah, I think you
develop it
can-
once you see the legacy
Yep.
place or something with some.
You hit a great
Where's the
point.
imaginary land that this is all gonna go on?
Yeah,
Where's
no.
this giant parcel that's gonna bring in national development? It doesn't exist.
No, see,
Yeah.
you know, you sort of get pejorative, like national development. Like, what does that mean? That's not what anybody is up here talking about.
Right.
People are talking about local developers. They just don't happen to live in Easton or haven't done business in Easton before. You know, you can have a development with 25 units and it doesn't look like the Hingham Shipyard.
Right.
But that's enough to have someone come in and do something creative and actually have a little bit of, you know, commercial activity, or to promote a little bit of commercial activity in that area. So, you know, it gets thrown around like, oh, this is a pie in the sky idea. It's not. I mean,
No, it isn't.
it's just finances. It's just economics.
Yep.
If you put the incentive in place, the people will come. I mean,
That's right.
But it's a misnomer. Name one project that didn't come to Easton because of special permit. It didn't happen.
You can't
Well, you
prove it.
can't prove that, Greg.
First of all, large projects haven't come to Easton because we didn't have sewage. And we have,
That's a great
we've
point, too.
established,
That's-
it's short history, because but we've established a pretty good history in the last 5 years or so of very successful special permit projects, which help create, which I'm telling you, don't happen. It's already been proven in this town that site plan review and architectural review via site plan review just doesn't work.
Well, that's a problem with the board then,
No.
because it does work. It does
Well, it's
work,
not a
Greg.
problem. It's not with the board, but it is a problem. But
It does work if you have design guidelines, and they are part of the site plan approval process. I'm sorry, but you're wrong about that. But you have to actually require the submission to address those guidelines, and then you apply conditions to approval, if you're going to approve the plan, to hold people to those guidelines. And if you're not doing that, then
That's not the issue. I'll check you off the record about that.
okay, but you can do this. Other towns have done it. Other towns have done it, so don't assume that you can't do it. You may not
Well, I know
want
it
to,
can be, I'm
but
just
you
saying it doesn't
can.
work in Easton. I know it can be done, obviously. It hasn't worked in Easton. We've tried, so we went special permit. And special permits works great.
So one dwelling unit to 5,000 is not enough?
Judy, just one
too small.
one additional question.
One
regarding
person's
it.
opinion.
Me?
No? No.
I think this poor gentleman wants to ask a question. Can we let him ask? What's the question, sir?
Just going back to that 10 unit, does it have to be a certain amount residential, certain, because mixed use is allowed, well, is it
This is just saying, you might have I'm just gonna pick on an acre because it's easy. So you have a ground floor that's got commercial space in it. And that commercial space has to face the street. You could put above that commercial space, one dwelling unit per 5,000 square feet of land, regardless of what's on you still got a first floor box, but now it's how many housing units can you put on this site? It's 1 to 5,000 if you accept that density standard. So that's all it means. It doesn't, it's not net of what's on the first floor.
So how does that relate to what we're seeing happening in Mansfield?
I don't know what's going on. I don't know Mansfield zoning enough to comment.
I mean, just when you look at it, the apartments that they have.
I'd have to go see what's been built there recently. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, it's a 6-story apartments going up right around the train station. Probably 1, 2, 3.
Well, their zoning must allow it. Are they all 40Bs? I mean, I don't know.
There's a couple of 40B. Yeah, zoning allows it. I mean, they're right on the train. They want it. They,
Yeah.
they
Yeah,
have,
train station.
train station, train.
I just asked so that it helps us to understand.
Yeah, well, this doesn't allow 6 stories.
Great, that's,
Yeah.
not that I'm approving or disapproving 6 stories, I'm just saying if we have some talkable points that people can, relate to.
So what this, sure, and what this says is, 3 stories. You get a 3-story building. You could do 4 stories on a corner lot, or if you had what's called a recessed facade. So, the principle here is that a corner lot ought to be kind of defining of a block.
Yeah.
So you would want some additional height on a corner. This is all, again, back to the form issues.
Yeah.
The taller building defines the block. But you could also have a taller building with this recessed facade so that your sense of the height of the building is really 3 stories.
Not as imposing.
Exactly, right, because that top floor is pushed back some.
Got it.
We can provide some examples of what that looks like, but that's all special permit. The 4 stories is special permit.
Got it.
That will keep Greg happy.
I just want it to work, kids.
I know.
I think of 10 special permit, but 10 can be in addition to the.
Yes, it can. That's correct. I could have a commercial block and 10 units above, and I don't trigger special permit. But as soon as I go, a set commercial block and 11 units, I get a special permit for the housing portion. Yeah.
Is Eastman, 5,000 is definitely not going to be 10. It might be on Depot sub-district. It might go to 5. It might go lower than 5, but 1 dwelling unit to 10 is out.
Yes.
Yes, it should
Thank
be.
you.
It should be no lesser density than 1 to 5. And
How
that's a
about-
separate issue from the special permit. I'm just saying, if you want to make it functional, you need to not reduce the density more.
And then how about Eastman sub-district?
I'm recommending 1 to 2,500.
The special permit of 20?
Yes.
Above 20.
21.
Above 20, yeah. So I get 20 at a certain density, over that I gotta go for a special permit. But again, I'm trying to respond to what I think I'm hearing, which is where do you actually want to promote some new investment? And if it's that area, then you gotta have rules that say that.
I think it makes sense for the types of properties that are there, that potentially be developed in the district.
Yep.
That might be density. We could go to boundaries now.
It's basically 17 units an acre.
Unless you have more to ask on density? Have you said enough, or would you like to go to boundaries?
Your show.
No. I just want to, we have Judy.
Let's do boundaries.
And we do have, I have a couple other questions about density.
Ask your questions. Let's stay on density if you have questions. Why go to boundaries?
Because I'm ticking them off. On the, in Eastman and the Depot sub-district, you speak of a major development.
Yep.
At 25,000 square feet?
Yep.
Could you explain what you mean by that? And then also, I saw, what happens at less than 25,000? I saw 10,000 occasionally in the design districts, but I was just, could you give a sense of what this major development,
Let me just go back to that section.
where this is and what you're thinking of?
So this is in D?
So,
In dimensioning, right?
yeah, I'm just trying to get
1A.
there. Okay. The purpose of having a major development provision is that when some project gets to a certain scale, it ought to be able to provide more public amenities than a small project. So all this is saying is that when you hit a development of 25,000 square feet of built space, I'm proposing to build 25,500 square feet of space. Now I'm into some public improvements that a project at 24,000 square feet is not expected as a matter of requirement to do. So a major development is triggered by the square footage of the proposed project, square feet in terms of the building. And so, you've got to do, now when you get into this, you need a larger lot. I'll just point that out too. So major development all of a sudden it's a bigger project. So you need a bigger lot, just even to make this make sense. You've got there are some design standards that are built into the dimensions, and let me give you guys some examples. Typically the way you regulate the amount of development that can happen on a lot. If you say you gotta have a minimum lot of a certain size, you got building setbacks, side, rear, front. You have height. And we won't talk about parking. So we just say these are like the lot regulations you got to meet. And that's typically all that gets regulated. But this goes much farther, and it talks about whether it's major or not. It's things like where's the building going to sit on the lot? I've seen density regulations that don't do a terrible job at this because they're not regulating how's the building face the street? Or does it have to face the street? Maybe it doesn't face the street. Now all of a sudden you've got a weird block. How much of the frontage of the lot has to be occupied by a building? So you don't end up with odd-shaped buildings. It's just like, this is about form. That applies whether it's a major development or not. But once you get into major development, you've now got some obligations around sidewalks. You've got obligations around pedestrian amenities, or say, for example, a larger development ought to be able to provide what we call like a pedestrian plaza. So there's a space on the lot that is for pedestrian amenities. It might be for outdoor dining. It might be for, people to kind of hang out. You might have almost like a wall part of the plaza, not a tall wall, but sort of a short one people can sit. It just becomes if you've got a development that's over a certain scale, you ought to be able to do some stuff for people. That's really what a major development is about. And that's all it's about. It's really about public improvements on the lot. So if you're below 25,000 square feet, of course, you wouldn't necessarily have to do those things. The board might ask, But it's, the assumption is that when you're building to a certain scale, you can do more as a developer for the community. I think that's, I don't mean to oversimplify, but that's really what it's about. So a lot of standards in here are around, if you're in that major development category, you gotta do X, Y, and Z.
So the form is, if we're in density and so that's D1. A says, defines the major development as 25 square feet or more floor area. And then the form is B, which speaks to lot area, it speaks to frontage, it speaks to a parking agreement, and it speaks to open space. But did you also say there'd be setbacks and frontage?
There's an existing proposal for some amendments to Appendix B. But what you need to pay attention to under D, density and dimensional regulations, is the section on building regulations. That's where you find the standards for height, for, typically height is regulated by the total height of the building. But in this proposal, you also have height standards for the height of individual floors.
So
And the reason,
So can I just ask, I know I don't mean to stop you, but this is only for major development?
no,
Okay.
no, that's why it's not part of B. B is for Five Corners major development only. The following provisions shall supersede Appendix B, which is where you have minimum lot, height regulations, that kind of stuff. So in a Five Corners major development only, following things will supersede B. Minimum lot area, no maximum lot coverage, minimum open space. Then you get to building regulations. This is not in Appendix B. It doesn't fit in Appendix B. So it talks about the maximum feet per stories, or maximum feet and maximum number of stories. What's the ground floor minimum? What's the upper story minimum? The reason this stuff is in here is that I worked a few years ago in the town of Bedford. Oh, God. And Bedford, they had this expectation that they were going to get height in their sort of New England downtown. And someone came along with this god-awful project that met their height standards, thinking they were going to get 2 stories, but it wasn't 2 functional stories, and the building is awful, and it's right on the street. So, you know, what you learn from that kind of lesson is you're going to have a minimum of 2 stories. There are going to be 2 floors to this building because, you know, this isn't, it's Easton, right? So you want to have something that kind of fits the architecture of Easton. There's what we call a build-to zone. So typically in dimensional regulations, like you have in your existing Appendix B, there's always a standard for the minimum setback, which is where that 50-foot thing comes from. But this is saying you have to have a maximum setback too. So the buildings have to fit on the lot within a certain place, so you don't end up with this street frontage, if you will, that's punctured, that the buildings all have to kind of make sense. So you have a little bit of wiggle room, minimum, maximum, but there is this point beyond which you can't push the building back. And within that piece of the front of the lot where the building has to be, a certain percentage of the frontage of the lot has to be occupied by a building. So you don't end up with funny-looking buildings. There's like some consistency and uniformity in the design. There's a limit on the maximum length of the building that can be a wall. So you don't end up with a building that doesn't have any windows, you know, or any kind of fenestration. There's some standards here on how much has to be glass so that you don't, again, end up with blank walls. You don't want blank walls in your business district facing the street. So this goes beyond the typical standards that you might find in Appendix B to talk about what is this building actually going to be. And that's why I'm saying this goes much more to the form of design than it does simply how many units per acre do you get. And I think that I don't worry about density as much. You probably all want to kill me for saying this, right? But to me, density is this artificial way of regulating how much gets built on a lot. To me, the real issue is how does this building sit on the property, and what is its relationship to the street, and where do you put the parking so you don't end up when you're driving down the street with a sense of just one big parking lot after another. So a lot of that stuff is in these regs, which is not in your existing zoning for your other districts, although Keesit has some of this. So, you know, I have, what I've done here, because I don't want to change all of Appendix B. Appendix B is this table, right? It's got minimum, maximum set, it's got maximum, minimum setbacks, maximum height, all the stuff you typically find, but a lot of the stuff that's in here is never going to fit in Appendix B. So this is essentially a special regulations section of your bylaw that said that when you go to Appendix B, it's going to say, you know, go to this section, whatever it is, 235-51-2. It's just going to refer you to this section so that you're not trying to cloud Appendix B with a bunch of stuff that doesn't fit there. Appendix B is the table of dimensional regulations. So you have to read the two together, I guess is my point.
Thank you very much, I appreciate
Not a
that.
problem, not a problem.
The only other size of a project is the 10,000 square feet. A development of less than 10,000 square feet, and by that, I saw that as a reference when you spoke to sidewalks, and you meant 10,000 square feet of floor area.
Where are you?
I'm in design standards, F5. Sidewalks in the parent statement, and then again in D, development of less than 10,000 square feet.
That's not land area, that's building.
Okay, so it means floor area here.
Yes, it does.
Okay, so let's add that. Thank you. Okay, and then the same thing, the development, the amenities in the major development, it's 25,000 square feet, but I understand that's floor area. We can add that language in so that there's no people like me don't get confused.
Well, it already says 25,000 square feet or more of floor area.
I know, but when you read down the design standards to section 9, amenities for major development, it says any development of 25,000 square feet or more.
But it's already explained earlier. Why do we need to repeat it?
Well, then don't repeat it. Then just say major development, because I'm from regulatory world, and if there can be any misinterpretation, then it puts the board at risk. So
is the board having trouble understanding this? I just want to know, because, I mean, if you do, it's fine, but, I mean, typically, when you set a standard like this, it's about the building. It's not the lot, it has nothing to do with the lot area. It has to do with how much development is being proposed.
The definition in 1A rules. That's, I understand that's what you're saying.
It's under building regulations, right? So that's why I took it to mean building area, but.
I think all she's saying is because we've defined 5 corners major development, let's just include that here instead of the description.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm
I
saying.
think that's fine.
It gets you out of trouble later. It's not, that's certainly not the biggest deal. I just wanted to understand as I was reading it through.
I mean, sometimes a lot of things make sense until we have, we have different references, and then things just, as things are, amended over the years, things just become sort of if it's not clear to begin with, it's not going to be any more clear once they change it in 10 years. You know what I mean?
It's shorthand, and so we can't have shorthand in
Yeah, it's
it.
just
I wanted to understand what was meant, so we
It
got rid
seems
of
redundant,
shorthand.
but sometimes there is a purpose for that, yeah.
Okay. What else would you like?
Those were the questions I had about sizes. And if you want to go to boundaries now, those were the only questions I had. Unless you want to go to that Eastman density, or we should just leave it at one dwelling unit to 25.
I don't know why you would change it if you want to encourage development there. You're capping the scale that triggers a special permit, which I realize you guys may still end up arguing about. But, I mean,
Not so much up
there's
there.
all this other regulation built in here that if you don't allow a certain number of dwelling units to happen, you're going to end up with units that are very odd sizes. I've seen this too, where the density doesn't make sense relative to everything else. So all of a sudden you've got units are 2,500 square feet a unit because you can't make it work otherwise. Just don't do that to yourselves.
No,
Okay.
And that's where you would do it, up that end.
That's exactly what
That's where
happens.
you can
I've seen
truly get
it.
the investment
I've seen, that's
of that
that's
scale.
why
It's
I
really the
did
only
that.
place you can.
Okay, so on the boundaries, I'll tell you what would be the most helpful to me, and I'm just speaking for myself. If you tell me, you can decide tonight what you want in or out, but give me a list by lot number so that I can edit those, I can edit the district once and get it right.
Sure. So can I just ask you two questions?
Of
Because I
course.
saw you took my version and so you put, and there's a condo development down in here.
Yeah, I was just trying to make just to make it contiguous, that's all
Gotcha,
I was
right.
trying to do.
So, okay. And then the Bay Road, you kind of creeped up Bay Road.
Well, I was looking at so Stephanie gave me a
Her
map.
original version, right.
Right, okay.
So, because my thought, and I'd just say this to our board members, if you think of that end of Bay Road, when you come off of, you go past CVS and that little road that shoots to where Walgreens was, it's pretty much residential after that.
So it's across from CVS? No, that's way down there.
We're after CVS. CVS is on your right, the entrance to Walgreens on your left. Think of it's all residential after that.
It's almost like behind the S-curve.
Right,
down
so
there.
I originally I had stopped the district right there, because after that, it seems to be a well-maintained, kind of cohesive neighborhood.
Yeah, that
So
seems a little too
I
far.
was just going by an earlier map I
Right,
had,
and
and
then,
it's
so,
fine.
I don't think there's any reason to go past that.
No.
Okay.
So I would, yeah. So-
And then on South Street, it was just.
But you're gonna give me these lot
Yeah,
numbers,
yeah,
right?
I'll give you.
Okay, all right,
Oh, yeah, then-
thank you.
No, I will.
Okay.
And just make the note about the graveyard too when you send that off.
Yeah, the graveyard is down on the south side of Foundry Street, on South Street, on the south side of Foundry.
Oh, yeah.
There's a graveyard on one side and there's conservation land on the other side.
Okay. So just take a look at that. and
So
see
again, just make sure, when you take things out, that we're not breaching continuity. We need to have this
Right, yep,
continuous, okay.
yep.
So, I mean, there are districts, guys, where,
Yeah.
you have conservation land in a district, and nothing's gonna happen to it because it's protected under Article 97 of the state constitution anyway, but you keep it in because you've got this continuity. That's all it really is about. But I'm happy to make those changes as long as we don't end up with a donut hole somewhere in here. That makes
And
sense.
this one takes out the 16 acres, which you guys were,
What about the section on the old ATM corner? So south on Bay Road and the southeast corner? There were those two small residential sections. I mean, would those be better off just being in the,
No, yeah, but we'll send, you're talking south, right?
no, these two right here.
Yeah, we'll take those out, but we'll just send it,
eliminate them.
yeah. We'll send it on over.
Diagonally from Mobiles?
No, across from the, fire station.
Just the tan colored ones,
Okay.
right? Peter's just.
Little
the
further
tan
up.
The
colored
ones a little bit
You have
farther,
that we can
the
pull
ones
up?
south of the ATM lot.
Okay, not the ATM one.
I should just open this up.
Just the tan ones.
We
No,
don't,
but the
they couldn't.
ATM lot stays in the district, right, yeah?
You're talking about my thing.
Yeah, these
No,
two.
we printed, can we pull this one up there?
Yeah.
We printed it out.
This is what we're talking about.
It was emailed to me.
We're talking about these.
Do you want to get
Yeah, as well as these ones over here.
these ones over here?
The 4 properties by the Eastman Street subdistrict that are in the
Yep.
residential transition subdistrict.
Okay,
Can we pull that up maybe?
yeah.
So we can all look-
No
Yeah.
residential sub.
Correct.
Transition. Okay.
I'm just trying to.
Great, Greg, did you want to get rid of anything off of, any of the Depot Street pink area? The, south, on the
No, I
south
don't
side?
think so. I'm trying to,
On the south side, you want the
oh, well,
condominium area?
the
The cul-de-sac?
two transition areas.
Yeah,
Oh, no, I'm sorry, wrong street.
That's not the map.
That's
No,
not,
can we,
not
can we put it on
No, it's not.
TV?
Add it for the screen, so we can see what you're talking
we do have this one.
about, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, not that one.
Can't I get this to come up in Google Maps?
There it is.
There we go. Now I got it.
Make it
There we go.
Okay,
This is it.
so,
the deep pink is people, the roses.
So there's a cul-de-sac that's painted pink. That's a condominium. Did you want to get rid of that?
So let's do this. We can all be on the same page. Whoa, oh, shoot. Uh-oh, sorry, Wayne.
That sounded good.
ECAT has a surplus, they can handle it. So, originally what we were talking about, so up those, on Bay Road, those kind of yellowish ones, not having those in there.
Okay.
That's what I talked about when you're at the back entrance to CVS and Walgreens. Then also over here on Bay Road on the south side, those two light ones, those are two, one's a two-family, one's a single-family. We didn't have those in there originally. I don't see why we would, but the condo, we're gonna keep it to be contiguous. I guess that's a stream. I thought it was a property line, that's why I had those front parcels.
So that stays as is, Greg?
It does right now. The condo, yes.
Okay.
And then what Chris was just talking about, if I may, right? Chris was asking about these two properties. These are two single-family houses, which we didn't have in there. And then this is also, so here's the Northeastern Savings Bank's sort of world headquarters. Here's that convenience store, which was just shut down. They tried to do a gas station, didn't get the variance. And then those are two open parcels. We didn't have those in there.
I think those are okay.
Because we weren't sure if we wanted to go, it's a residential area after that, but it could be in the, whatever you guys think. And I think that's two little houses there, I think we should take those out.
I mean, but when you think about the gas station is the kind of the point where if you're gonna go as of right, then you have to really kind of get things right because, that, you wouldn't want a big mixed use maybe right on that corner where, there are houses on every other corner of that
You're talking
street.
here?
Yeah, the gas station.
Yeah.
I mean, that's when you start thinking special permit, whereas you actually have some control over what you're gonna do, rather than just saying, okay, this fits this entire zone.
Right, and that's the
So where I am,
zone.
where I am.
Yeah, that's where you start to get yourself, that's where,
Put a circle on that and talk about that.
well, that really goes to the heart of the special permit as of right argument. I mean,
So, and then we seem to have, so we have to, so we have to add
I
back
can't
in.
see, so I'm just following along, listening.
So originally, we'll send this.
That's all right.
So see Shaw's, a couple things. Those two squares, one is at the U-Haul, I'll call it the U-Haul store, we had that in there with the tower.
You took it out. Sub-district, so I don't think that's.
I did, but we're gonna put it back in.
Okay.
And then across the way, we had those three properties. So the first two are yours, I know, yeah. We had those three properties.
Where are those three?
I'll just show you this.
Across from Shaw's on
Across,
the bottom right.
Okay.
Go back to my original, what do you
I'm not
guys
gonna
call
try to
them?
keep up with this right now, just
So-
wait till you
These
send me
over
the
here
lot
get
numbers.
You'll get it after.
Just don't give me a donut hole. That's all I'm asking. Don't do this to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then on South Street.
So you can see that 16 or 13 acre property we were talking about is already not included.
yeah.
South Street, that's the way we had it.
So you're gonna take the cemetery out, you said?
South Street's the one with the.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm looking South Street North.
Oh, yeah. No, that's how we had it, correct.
Yeah, going down South Street, we're taking it all out, right? Other than the ones
What
that
are we
on
taking out?
106.
Oh,
Well, what we had originally
Right, it was
was
just the 106.
just the ones that are 106. We didn't
The
have
front
this.
ones with frontage on 106?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
We didn't have.
yeah.
Right.
Because one's the cemetery and the rest are the existing.
Residential, yeah.
What's the second one on the Quanticut, the one like that back little corner, is that still part of that same property that you're talking about?
Thank you.
What is that?
Will it fit in there? I guess so.
Well,
It's kind of broken. One's the island is the park.
Yep.
The one to the left is the car dealer.
Yeah.
The one to the right
That's the old post office.
So that's that
is
building right there.
Arlene's building.
I couldn't tell which one was which, if that was.
I think I'm looking at the way I had them. I think she has two parcels there.
Okay, I think
When
that's
it
why.
climbs up.
Yeah, that's why it's split up, because the house,
Sort of on the
the
angle.
office building has to be a little farther over than the post office.
Yeah,
is on the
although
other
the one
side.
that's on the pond, I'm not sure. The car dealer has a house, but I think it's on the same lot.
Oh, that's
I have to
okay,
go look.
right, yeah. But
Yeah.
those are all part of that, kind of, that corner, right?
Yeah, I don't know if I had this one. I don't think we had. I think that's at school, but we'll have to look it up.
And that is
Oh, this, yeah.
existing business, so do you want to
Yeah.
keep it as business and not have it? I think earlier
Oh, yeah.
conversations,
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
you were
yeah.
saying take it out.
Yeah, that has to stay.
Does business work?
Keep it as business, that's what I'm talking about.
They're existing.
Well,
Yeah,
but-
we're-
Does the
those-
business
right
district
next to the
work?
plant, Right?
What district do you want those in?
Yeah. Business district, yeah, right?
Well, is this overlay, and does the underlying zoning still, or is this supersede, is this?
This is not an overlay, this is a new district.
Okay, right, yeah, okay. So we have to keep that business.
Oh, Jesus, yeah, that's right.
This is not an overlay, this is a district.
That's correct.
Well, that's where the discussion about doing sort of like the modified grandfather,
All right, yeah.
Yeah.
which would seem to make some sense because we're really.
Yeah, so it's
only-
business now, so we'll just keep it in business.
But they can also, yeah, but how do they have the benefit of the new zoning if they, yeah, I mean.
Are we creating a break?
Well, that's the, yeah, the concern is that we're
Right.
then losing some continuity.
What are all these
Right.
property? I don't know.
Right.
They're all commercial.
Right here? These are houses.
No, as you go further
yeah,
west
right.
on Eastman,
Oh, yeah, it's all business. Yeah, business and business.
modern glass.
Now, Judy, can you think of a way to figure out how to keep those things with their business, but keeping the zone sort of intact?
Because this is the area where those bakeries and
Then we can-
the commercial uses you were thinking of would be.
Fourth sub-district.
What's that?
It's easy, fourth sub-district.
Oh.
That's easy.
Oh, the residential.
Fourth
that small?
sub-district, yeah.
Residential.
It's all one
residential
district.
business?
Right, right. Yeah.
So
we'll
it
do
doesn't
in
matter how many
sub-district.
sub-districts you have. To do easy, that would be so,
Actually,
so,
then if someone has an idea about something they could do in that
Fourth
section,
sub-district.
they could just try to get it rezoned, and they'd have at least a mechanism to go that way.
well, yeah, but you also could just put them in a sub-district now. That's a business sub-district.
Oh, no, those properties, right, but not the whole.
No,
yeah.
just have a fourth sub-district.
No, right, right.
Put those properties in it.
But it actually just gives the people that live in that residential area kind of a path to, a kind of a
Excuse me, where are you
tedious path, yeah.
Keep
People live on their properties,
If,
yeah.
Under this map here,
Yeah, they came off of it.
under this map here, you can see that, you can't see it because it's so messy, but, I'm
be such
sorry.
an easy fix.
So we're talking about a fourth sub-district.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so easy, just for those couple of properties.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
Makes sense?
Yeah.
but make the business uses something that aren't gonna be offensive to the neighborhood. I mean,
Right.
Yeah.
Well, but right now they're just, well,
But they're already existing,
What-
there's
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
some settled
Yeah.
expectation already.
so just reference the regular business zoning and just, if they conform, they conform, if they don't, they don't, and that's, they kind of,
yeah, but I think you want something that's more nuanced here. I mean, everything else is, so
yeah.
I think the easiest path is just to say it's a fourth sub-district, and I can create that.
I'd
That's
just be
not
a little
problem.
careful about limiting the uses too much.
Well, no, I understand, I'm hearing you on that.
Given the, someone already owns it and they.
I'm hearing, I understand that.
This is something I think that's important.
Huh?
Yeah, I think you should just clarify what your parcels you're talking about.
It's the parcels with, I guess, I think it's just the ones that are already business zoned,
Should be those two properties.
Thank you.
Well, not just business owned, but that are actually
business
commercial
used,
uses
yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
In the
yeah,
residential
sorry.
district?
Yeah.
So what the proposal on the table is, for simplicity, to do actually a fourth sub-district,
To protect.
to just protect those
Existing
existing
uses.
uses and hopefully promote, if they ever change their use, to promote something that's more palatable for the neighbors.
Right. That'd be the easiest way.
Right now, they're in the business zone, just like any other business zone is, right, and so they can do anything allowed in the business zone within the regulations.
On this map,
I mean, you want,
you
wouldn't,
can see the blue colors are the lots we're speaking of,
Correct.
Just figure out the other.
and that's business.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
so
Those three.
the existing business district probably wouldn't make sense in terms of just the dimensional regulations. So
No,
let me take a
that's true.
look at this
Yeah.
and see what I can come up with. It's a good point. Okay.
And so it'll be,
Right, what do you guys think? I mean, there's nothing else we can really do there except for allow it as a business, right? Okay.
Yeah.
it's a zone district. I'm not gonna go, the approval of mechanism, we got that, but also from now on, are the rest of the board, Greg has been starting to call this the Five Corners Village District as opposed to the Five Corners District, because Five Corners has always been the Depot Street intersection. And so to elongate it, are you okay with it being the Five Corners Village
I think it should
District?
be Five Corners Furnace Village.
Well, Furnace Village.
That sounds-
Furnace Village.
Five Corners Furnace Village.
It's historically Furnace Village.
Yeah. It's Five Corners and Furnace Village.
That's historically what it's called. Let's just go with that.
Just call it Furnace Village.
Furnace Village.
Okay.
So Five Corners is part of historic Furnace Village? Okay, you guys know this stuff better than I do. So Furnace Village, is that what you're saying?
Furnace Village District.
I don't really care, but I like Five Corners Furnace Village.
You gotta make these decisions. while Greg's out of the room.
FCFV. I mean, no one's ever going to use the term. You're not gonna say,
I don't get involved.
they're not going to say, oh, I have my business. Neil's not going to say, oh, my business in the Five Corners Furnace Village District. He's going to say it's
Greg?
It's down Five Corners, right?
Greg, we're talking about renaming this the Furnace Village District. Does that give you a heart failure?
I could care less.
Oh, you can't earlier. He'll care tomorrow. Okay, so back, so the only other thing the only thing I had on this was that you had some stated principles that you wanted to achieve in this district. And I just want to ask you if you think you've got it. We've got commercial and mixed-use development was one of the purposes. Perhaps you have that in the anchors. The infrastructure wastewater improvements, take advantage of that. One thing I wanted to bring to your attention is that the allowed uses in the table were set up before you had sewerage. And now that you have sewers, you may want to consider some uses that take excess water that now you can handle. And I bring that to your attention because in the town hall has been hearing about, in the Queeset district, there's an interest in putting in a laundromat. And, a laundromat, a place where
People use those and they
people
go
can
to a
use them for
restaurant or something while they're doing their
self-service.
laundry, right? Yeah.
Doesn't seem to presently be in the allowed zoning. But is there any problem with self-service laundromats it's a good use for water. When you got sewage, it's good to have those kind of high uses. So I'm not saying, make a decision tonight. I'm saying take advantage of the fact that you have sewage.
There would be some other high usage projects.
Maybe.
Well, restaurants are also already allowed. So can you think of any others, Judy, that would be high water uses?
Restaurants, hair salons,
Those are all allowed.
Those are on.
I'm just saying.
And yeah, so the self-service laundromat seemed to me, those of us who have used them, seemed to be something that was missing. And then encouraging sustainability and walkability. In Judy's work, she brought in LEED certification for buildings, which is sustainable building design, which I thank you very much, Judy. She also spoke to landscaping as being the type of landscapes that would be climate tolerant. I'd like to add native to that. And then I also wondered if you guys would consider renewable energy sources as something that you encourage in this district as sustainable. Lighting fixtures are real easy to use for solar. I don't know if you want to speak to any other ways, Judy, that you can bring in renewable energies as an option here in the sub-district to help our sustainability.
I could think about it.
Okay. I certainly would like to plug the solar light poles as the easiest, but there's got to be more to it than that.
Does the town have existing policies on this for other types of development or other districts?
No, we have solar fields and we have solar panels, but we don't speak, but this would be an opportunity to really speak to sustainable. You brought in a lot of design And so this is an opportunity to speak to it at the design level.
Yeah, I'm just asking, is this something that belongs in this district, or does it belong elsewhere in the zoning bylaw?
Like townwide, you mean?
Yeah,
Oh.
I don't know that you want to just target one district. I'm not disagreeing with your statement, but I think this is a bigger issue than just this one little district.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's great. I mean, this is the first time I saw sustainability listed in the zoning, so I just plugged on it. But if you guys would you guys like to consider that kind of as a overall?
Next year,
Oh, damn it.
not this year.
Come on, I'm only here this year.
I mean, I like to keep these a little pretty short, you know, I mean, they are good things to list.
The only advantage of doing it now is that
This
if you have it
requires
in
LEED
one place,
certification, or
you can
is
then
that-
bring it to the
Or
others
something similar.
elsewhere.
But you know what happens if it's not done in a way that's gonna be realistic?
I wouldn't
like
require
people coming out,
certification.
we
I
had
would
some
never do
solar
that.
projects.
Okay, I didn't think so.
Encourage it.
But people come in and
I
they
saw
always
something.
it gets waived because it
Oh, yeah.
doesn't really work. So
I didn't think
I'd rather
I read
not put it
it.
together
I
real
didn't-
quick at
I didn't think
9:30
I
at
read
night, or,
it.
you know, I think I'd like to reach out to the Green Committee, right? That's what-
She said she's gonna speak to it. She's
Yeah.
gonna think about it, so it's not.
I mean, one thing we are doing
Well,
in this
I
district
would like
now-
some direction, though. I mean, I think that it's a fine idea. I'm just thinking that,
Oh.
do you really want to limit this to one district, or do you want to?
Well, we're not gonna
about
overhaul
this.
the zoning bylaw right now, but, so,
Apparently
It
we
just
are.
says incorporate sustainable design.
one thing we are doing was, you know,
Yeah, it doesn't say it have to be LEED certified. You don't want that in your zoning. It just says sustainable design principles.
Oh, I thought I saw lead in a.
Not certified, no, it's referred to in there. Applicants shall incorporate sustainable design principles in LEED,
well, there's a lot of good stuff we
comma,
can put
the
in here, but-
Massachusetts Stretch Code, Energy Star, and other programs where possible.
Perfect.
That's fine.
Yeah, we don't, you
The
don't,
way it's written is
oh,
fine.
God, no, yeah, thank
I
you.
just wanted to make sure it was.
Yeah, I don't blame you, because I know exactly what you're thinking, I think, but anyway.
I just wanted to point out that you had it in there, and it was,
Yes.
it was a positive thing.
Yeah,
Okay, you're done talking, so I've got, those are the things that I had,
I wasn't talking.
no, I know, I've lost you, I've lost you.
I've been in this room for 12 hours. It's
Yeah.
like, I'm doing my best.
Yeah. All right, well, let's wrap
I
it
did.
up.
I started in this room at 9:30 this morning. Whew.
you crazy dude. What-
Yeah. Count my millions.
It's a volunteer position.
Yeah. But when I had, never mind, yeah.
Okay, so get me the, I know you already heard this, but get me the parcel numbers that you want to either take out or add. And I will put some thought into this fourth sub-district concept. Because I don't think just making it business district works with the rest of this. So let me think about that. I'll come up with something.
And then I think the only other change I heard tonight was regarding the dwelling unit size.
What?
We had, in the depot sub-district, it did say one dwelling unit for 10,000 square feet, got changed to 5.
Right, because, well, you asked me to change it to 10. So
I don't know, it just got changed to 5 again. And then down below, one dwelling unit to 3,000 square feet is not acceptable, but we don't know what the new number is.
What's that again?
Down in
Just rehashing
residential.
what we talked about, you know.
Yeah, I'm just trying to summarize what we said so we're giving her direction. Only if I get it right.
So that last point was, you wanted clarity on the 3,000 square feet, something in the residential?
Yeah, it's the
The bonus?
historic building
Yeah.
conversion.
We tried to go there, but weren't really ready to
Yeah,
get that.
Well, because we have to go back, because per Judy's explanation, it's inside an existing building, right?
Yeah.
So
Right.
we have to look at the buildings that we're talking about, we have to look at the lot sizes, and we have to look at what realistically, per our bylaw, could be allowed in there. I think this is a 900-foot. And then you have to see how that relates to the lot size. And you say, okay, well, that would produce 2 or 3 additional units. Well, okay, or that will produce 17 additional units. You might not want to do that. So we need to just look at those numbers.
okay.
These are, I thought this was a good meeting, we've made good, but let's, these little fine tuning numbers, we've got plenty of time to fine tune the numbers. So the little ones here and there, we need to digest this, we need to, you know, take a look and see what works for us. And that's gonna have to come from, you know, like Judy's gonna go and analyze, come up with a solution for the business sub-district.
That'll
for
be
lack of a
fun.
better name.
That'll
Yeah.
be fun.
And we have to take a look, we should all, hopefully you guys all take a look and
It is, it's fun.
look at, you know, look at the form-based density and see if it works for us.
So then, is there anything that you want me to bring forward for, if not the 18th, for the March 3rd meeting, to look at those lots? Do you want me to bring any material forward?
What
for-
lots? You lost me.
You just spoke to how we have to look at
Oh, the
lots
size of
for
the
the.
Oh,
for
no,
the-
I don't need you, no, yeah, I don't need you to do anything for that. I'm just,
Okay,
yeah, you don't need, no, I mean,
it'll
just,
just get on the agenda.
yeah, we can, we're capable planning board members, we can go.
Should it
read
be on
zoning
the
map.
agenda every single meeting from now on, until March 16th, or should it just be
The
on?
bylaw, absolutely, yeah, because
Okay.
we'll discuss it every, and we don't have that meetings before then.
Okay.
You know, I'm sure you'll have some very fun discussions at this board level between now and March 16th, so
Add to the agenda,
it's
so-
fine.
Well, we're just doing this on a compressed schedule, and we have some.
Right.
It's good to have differences of opinion.
I
you know,
agree.
And hopefully we figure it all out. But you know
I
what? You know what? There's
completely
also a limit to these meetings. We're 3 hours in, and you know I think we're good. You're
Well,
right. I think
that is why
And I
We're starting to lose
gotta be
people
in New
here,
Bedford
so.
in the morning, so I'm shutting down at this point.
well, I mean, that's why I made that very rude comment at, you know, an hour and 3/4 in, that we had some work to get done. So,
But see, some of us thought work was being done up to that point.
So do we,
Yes.
are we getting rid of all residential, no changes to residential uses, right?
Why are we getting a flashing light?
Oh, he said 1020 would lose them.
Oh, all right. Have a good night, Easton.
Yeah, that's what we talked about is, yeah.
Yeah, we did say that, right? All allowed uses? Well, in residential, the only uses that'll be allowed are those that are already allowed, plus accessory.
Yeah, it just stays as regular.
Except the special permit for the intensification of a
the density
historic
change.
building.
Yeah, except historic buildings. Everything else went back to reverting.
Right, but the historic building is still not a use. It's just a density.
That's right,
Right.
that's right.
Clarifying question, when you're talking about that for the historic buildings, are you
Yeah.
talking about within the confines of that building you have more units, or are you talking to add more dwelling units to the property that has a historic?
It would be within the structure.
Within
The
the
exception, however, I just want to be honest, someone may need to do a change to the exterior of the building, not to increase the building, but if there's something around access in the building code.
Well, it does
You
allow
know.
for expansion of the size of the
Yeah, oh, you'd
building.
have to.
Yeah, I mean, but special
You
permit.
have to kind of explain it when people ask
Yeah.
questions here.
But you're not
Well,
talking about.
I'll give you a good example.
Yep,
My house, like if I, say I'm in a historic home, I just
Yeah.
a lot.
yep,
If I wanted, and I have a large attic that's empty. To put a second unit up in there. Not saying I will, I'm just kind of bantering ideas. Put a second unit there, I would probably extend the footprint a little bit to add.
And if you were someone that bought your lot, you'd probably try to put a big addition and put as many units as they
but
could.
it's
right
all
there.
special permit, and the historical commission is a review body. And I wrote that in specifically because sometimes they get left out of these discussions. It's not that anybody is ignoring them.
What
It's just
are they
that,
gonna do though? Are they gonna have like any actual power?
well, yeah, they're a reviewing
it's written
body
in
to
the
the
bylaw.
board. They make comments.
Are they down?
No, the special
harsh.
permit,
Yeah, is
the
that what it
board,
says?
Yeah,
guys,
it
whoa,
has
whoa,
to be
whoa. The special permit is with this board. But think about, when you get a special permit application, it gets sent out to different boards to review, right? So all this is saying is, whoever else you normally send to, in this case, the historical commission also gets a crack at the review.
For review, yeah.
And I would say, and I'll put my historical commission member on, but this also to streamline process. This would be the first time that we have this sort of, historical review brought in on
Yeah.
a special permit.
Right?
It might help matters so that we don't have an ambiguous area of enforcement to look at creating, right now there's a phrase in here about, significant historical,
Yeah.
we might want to put this in a local historic district. Now, what that means, that's when the historical has, basically anything, anything viewable from a public way,
Right.
and anything that basically requires a building permit on the exterior of the house, has nothing to do with the interior. But it may behoove us to use that mechanism so that it's streamlined for historical and for the property owners. Otherwise, it becomes.
Well, you can, but because this is truly a special permit.
Right.
You control this.
Right.
So I'm not sure, I understand what you're saying, and there's nothing wrong with a historic district, but I'm not sure you need it, because this is going to accomplish for you the authority that you need. You get to decide, yes, this is okay, or no, it's not. You're going to get input from the Historical Commission as part of that review process. So what this says is you got to substantially preserve that structure as it is, and that's the whole point.
Yeah.
But if somebody needs to
But
make a change.
what happens if, let's say this board, okay, we approve everything we said, and historical says no? And so I guess I'm trying to create a
Wait, I don't
track
think
that historical would stay within.
I don't think you want to create a situation where one board can trump the other. I think what you're asking for
So it's more advisory.
is for the like any other, like DPW advises you, like police, like whoever else normally comments on a special permit or site plan application. I'm just saying include historical. So they have a chance to review the project
So
and.
it's just a review, I get you.
It
Okay.
is a review.
All right.
You're still the special permit authority.
I just want to make sure I really understand. So
I'm sorry.
The historic density, or the historical structure density bonus, does it provide for the ability to add additional structures, separate independent
It
dwellings?
says substantially preserve the existing building, and the reason I wrote it that way is that somebody may have to make a minor change to the exterior
No,
for
I
code.
get that part,
It doesn't
that's
mean
fine.
that you get to add a bunch of space, although it's a special permit with this board.
But you're not, whether you go to that 3,000 square foot, where you're not talking about adding a separate independent structure to
Right.
the property.
It's inside the
Okay.
existing
That's- I
dwelling.
just wanna make sure
I'm
I
sorry if I
understand.
wasn't
But
clear.
it would
I
be,
communicate this to our folks, I just wanna make sure I
And
understand it.
what zoning prohibits that? The underlying zoning or the fact that we don't allow it in the first place?
You don't allow in the residential district a multifamily
Under
dwelling.
regular, plain old regular underlying zoning, right?
Yeah.
but there could be a situation that a building that's deemed historical is allowed to, create units, that also could subdivide the land if it's on a 20,000
That's
square
for the-
foot
that's-
lot,
that's for the
right?
10,000
So
But they could do that anyway.
That's what I'm saying, the historical law, I'm just, so you can
I was
explain
just
it.
focused on the density bonus for historic preservation.
But I just wanted to show, that land could be subdivided also if it was larger.
I understand that, but this is a separate.
So if you had like
Pool work.
if you had a big white house with a big yard, then you could keep that historic, and then you could do something else over here, right, yeah.
But
okay.
they're going to be able to divide, if they can divide the land, they can divide the land.
Right, regardless of the
Gotcha.
historic.
Yeah.
And you certainly could write into the special permit that the density will be, you still have to have enough land to meet the 1,000, or the 1 unit to 3,000 square feet.
Oh, yeah, right, yeah.
But you certainly could write into the special permit that the density will be as proposed, which might be 1 unit per 10,000 square feet. Depends on what the lot area is. So you could essentially lock it up with the special permit. But I'm not going there at this hour, because I need to go. I have to get to New Bedford in the morning for a big meeting. Thank you very much. This was fun.
Thank you.
It's nice to come to a meeting when there are people.
All right, motion, who's gonna give us a motion?
Who know the area, because I drive by it, but I don't know what you guys.
Thank you, ECAT, thank you, Easton.